Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast, Supercoach edition. It's a Wednesday night for us, Thursday morning for you guys. So, yeah, watching us, and yeah, it's Supercoach. So, ready to rip and tear into this one. The first 2 weeks, we really tore into things, 4 teams each. This week, we are only doing 3, cut back for the last few episodes, and just even it out a little bit. So, it's 3-3-3 for the finale. So, we've got the Cowboys, Roosters, and the Newcastle Knights tonight. So even though it's only 3, definitely 3 teams that have some talking points when it comes to Supercoach players. So another great episode in depth. We'll go. Luckily as well, the app has gone live now for everyone to witness. So anticipating a lot of newcomers as well. So welcome to the page. If it's your first time listening or watching, I do recommend for those who haven't, go ahead, go watch the previous videos we've done so far this year to get you right. We basically have tore into every single team, or we will do at some point. And so far, we've already done 8. I won't list them now because I've forgotten half of them already. It's been a big day. But yeah, go ahead, go look through the YouTube pages or the podcast and you'll see us there. But the boys are back, Jesse and Trav. We've had, over 24 hours now of a live app. How good has it been? Jesse, you're in heaven still.
Oh, it's bliss. I love it. It's actually quite disheartening to see my first team and all the teams that I put together so heavily owned, but I kind of expected it. So gone back to the drawing board again, trying to throw some potties in there. But no, it's really good. Bit of clarity around ownership about everything, really. It's app's much easier to use. I just don't like that there's no clear all function anymore. And I have to manually go through and bin everyone. So it takes a bit more time, but no, it's been enjoyable. Been loving it.
Well, look, it's fair to say that everyone's been watching and listening to the podcast and they've covered you basically. So shout out to you all out there. At least you're listening to us when we do talk. Trav, how you been, mate? How's the last 24 hours been?
Been okay. Actually, it's been better than okay. My life's complete. The weight off my shoulders. I'm a happier man. My heart stopped skipping so fast because I'm trying to wait to get through here. Christmas is now. I can go back and look back on the good, happy memories. And I said to my family, I'll see you in September. Supercoach is back. You're done. You've served your purpose for the last 5 months, and now I've got my call.
Oh, what a time to be alive. What a time. Rugby league, that deep heat, we keep saying it. You can smell it in the air. It's starting to waft over and so keen for it. Just again, all our leagues and stuff that are out there, mainly for the Supercoach watchers or listeners out there, we've obviously got the free one available. So that's the overall comp. So go ahead. You'll see the codes there have been saved onto our page. Get the league code. I think there's already about 100 in there, which is within about just over 24 hours. So that's huge. I really appreciate everyone's support. I think last year we had about 300 or 400 all up. So let's try and smash. Let's try and get to 1,000 this year. I reckon we can get 1,000 people in there versus us. Probably beat me quite easily, but see if you can get Jesse and Trav. It should be fine. But I do have bragging rights on Trav at the moment, so I'll be taking that throughout the year until the year's over, and then I'll probably have to give him back the bragging rights.
You're really sorry, mate, but you're really only bragging against me, like me against myself, because I did your team last year. So I'm literally bragging myself against myself.
Honestly, guys, just let me know. Like it's my team. It was how I wanted to do it. I'm taking ownership. I'm taking credit. I listen to my own advice, and I click the buttons to make the trades. So thank you very much. I'm the winner. Thank you, number one. But look, back to what I was saying. The head-to-head leagues. So the free one was full within about 10 minutes. I'm not even kidding. So we are going to put one more free code out. I'm not going to do too many and go over the top. We're literally going to do one more. I'm going to let this podcast go out to you all, and then probably by about lunchtime Thursday. So today when you're listening or watching, that code will then be live out there to grab. I will be going it to the League of Inches Legends first, though. So if you want to get first dibs on it, go to the Legends Facebook subscriber group, $2.99 per month. There's no lock-in anything. So if you just want to be in there for the first month, look at all the preseason stuff we're talking about. There's so much on there. It's ridiculous at the moment. It's flying, that chat. And then get the codes. Make sure you're first in for all our codes, and then get out next month. You're not happy, then you're welcome to do that. But first priority to them. At the moment, we're way over the 20 limit in there. So if reaches the max for the Supercoach head-to-head comp. It does. So first in, best dressed. And then the cash comp, about 6 or 7 spots remain for head-to-head comp 2. That'll be the final one. So again, message the page. Let me know. I've seen a couple of messages already being live tonight. So it's probably going to go by the time this is out. If it's not, please message the page. Let us know. And if you're into the tipping comp, make sure you go to ESPN, type in League of Inches, message the page. We'll give you the passwords to join them all and just go from there. But let's rip and tear, boys. Let's get into some Supercoach action. First up tonight is the North Queensland Cowboys. So once again, go through the first 5 rounds. So round 1, Manly away. Round 2 is the Cronulla Sharks at home. Round 3, the Broncos away. Round 4, the Raiders at home. And round 5, the Broncos away. Credit to their logo at the moment, celebrating 30 years. Set on the screen for the YouTube watchers. Looks fantastic. Absolutely. It's growing on me more and more. I look at that. But let's get right into it. So straight away, hooker. Reece Robson, Carl Lawton, 330K, 2RF and hooker dual. And Reece Robson, hooker, 590K. Now, because the app is now live, we haven't been able to in the last couple of weeks let you know of ownership status and things like that. So I'll leave that to the boys. They'll be able to throw you the stats and numbers that do suit. We'll give them to you for some of the players that matter. We might not for others. But Jesse, I'll throw to you first. What is the talking points out of here? Probably Reece Robson was highly owned last year. At the moment, I'm seeing it only 2%.
Yeah, 2% is actually crazy. I'd see there's not a lot of upside in his price. Last year, he was really underpriced because he was coming off a bit of a quieter year, and we all expected more attacking stats out of him. And, I think he was about 5 points undervalued last year, and he comes into it basically at a pretty steady price. I think he's going to hit it. I think he's a 60-point hooker and 80 minutes. So it's like, you're getting him for what he is. I still really like Reece Robson. I'm very surprised it's only 2%. Like the draw's not generous to them. I think it's actually quite hard to start off with. So, but yeah, I just think he's super reliable, super consistent, and there's very little to worry about with him. You can sort of just lock him away and forget. So, yeah, 590. It's not a bad price. I'd probably still prefer like a Watson, a bit cheaper. Again, like I don't know if I'd looking to spend near 600K on a hooker to begin with, but yeah, I can definitely see the appeal to him, but yeah, 2%, not many people can.
Trav, what are your thoughts around the Robson?
Yeah, I think Jesse just hit the nail on the head, really. I don't think I want to spend 590K on a hooker at this point in time, and playing with this team that I have for the last month, and particularly now that it's opened up over the last 24 hours, I'm realizing more and more that I can't be spending that much at the hooker spot. I need to, if I'm going to pay for someone it's maximum around that 500 or low 500K, I need every dollar I can. So I love Reece Robson. Was a happy owner of Reece Robson last year. Look, do I think his ownership is low? Yeah, I do. I think 2% is quite low. I would have thought a little bit higher, maybe around the 8 to 10% might be okay. But for me and my team and what I'm reading of it, I just can't afford him for the price that he's got. And as Jesse said too, like, yeah, okay, you're going to get your 60 points from him. You've got to navigate the tough draw early. He's got Manly at 4 Pines in first round. He then got to go play the Sharks. So he's got Sharks at home. Then he's got to go down to Suncorp against the Broncos. He's got the Raiders at home, and then he's got the Panthers in round 5. They've got the bye in round 7. He's going to be he's the Blues Origin hooker. So you've got to navigate him missing out. So at least a bye, tough round. He's got the round 12 bye, which is Origin period. Anyways, he's got the Origin games. So I just, as much as I love him, I just don't. I'm not high on him just yet until after Origin.
Fair shout indeed. I think we're good to move on here straight away. Nice, short, sharp there for the hookers. Front row forwards. So a couple of real cheapies in Will Sullivan and Caden Lars. Obviously keep an eye on just how that squad is going. If they get a huge injury toll, then might be looking at those guys. Jamal Shibasaki, 232K. Thomas McKaylee, 276K. Harrison Edwards, 2RF Jules, 317K. Cohen Hess back from an injury didn't play a game last year. Forgotten man in a way, 327K. 2RF dual as well. Jason Tamalolo, 359K. Jordan McLean, 374K. Sam McIntyre, 2RF dual, 396K. And Griffin Neem, 402K. That is it. That's the front row forward list there. Now, I think the first one to really talk about here is Cohen Hess, who's slipped on the radar massively, I feel like. And I'm actually starting to see a fair bit of value in Cohen Hess to the point where he's currently in my team. Trav, talk to us. Cohen Hess.
8% of people are on the same path. I think that'll improve. I think that'll go a lot higher, particularly because there's a lot of question marks around our cheapies and what's going to happen this year. And there's no one, unlike previous or the last couple of years, there's only a very small handful of cheapies that we know of right now that we can pick. Whereas last year, I almost had most of my cheapies done, and TLT just fixed maybe 2 or 3 of them last year. So it's a tough thing. So I think Cohen Hess, we know he's going to start, or if he's not going to start, he's definitely going to get at least the 40 or 50 minutes off the bench. So the minutes are there for him. He's front row forward. He's at 327K. He's dual too. So that's quite handy with the 2RF, FRF. So yeah, he's not in my team just yet, but the more and more I think about it, he is certainly someone that I'm going to plug and play probably before we start the year.
Jesse, let us know your thoughts around the Cohen Hess move, and then start to push us any other direction you want to go here with the front row forwards.
Yeah, well, Cohen Hess is he's at the cheaper end of the cheapy second row, well, the dual forwards in general bracket. So there's really no one below him that I can see any relevancy to. So I expect minutes out of him. Even if it's his current price value, if he does get a bit of a short stint, if it's 40 minutes, he probably makes 30 something points. So not massive upside potentially. There could be enough, but I think he's just someone to plug a hole with, to be fair, and that dual position kind of helps. So yeah, there's really not too many other options, and I think it's just more of a it's a safety and a budget pick just to have one. So outside of that, there's really nothing. You went through 10 players and they just scream irrelevance. Like their highest averaging front row just in that position is Griffin Neem at 41. And just, 0%, like for a good reason. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with him. There's not a great deal that ever happens out of the Cows props. So it's just, there's not really much to scream home about. But it's I know Thomas McKaylee was sort of touted last year and I haven't heard anything from it since because he didn't get anywhere. But yeah, there's really nothing going on for anyone in the props of this side, I'd say.
Do you think Tamalolo can bring some of that international feel back to his game this year? Because he was a beast.
Not with Peyton around. I can't see anything changing for him. Honestly, I think it just
he's out for the first couple of weeks as well. I'm pretty sure.
He is.
It's just not going to see the Tamalolo of old ever again in the NRL.
Not with Peyton there anyway. There's something going on there for sure. There's something going on. One day, Jason Tamalolo release a book and everyone will straight away go fast forward to the Todd Payton section and we'll finally hear the truth about there was a punch up in the dressing room or something.
What a good book that would be. He would have a rad story in his life. God, he's a good dude.
3 pages dedicated to Peyton.
It'd be more than that.
4 chapters, sorry. 3 chapters.
Hopefully a bit of a feature for us last year because we gave Peyton a few shout-outs last year. He wasn't our greatest fan, I don't feel like, throughout the year. We were a bit unhappy when it came to Supercoach in minutes to certain players. But anyway, you've made a good point there. So 2 RFs, I'll go over. As I said, there was a few duels. So I'll just literally mention the name. We'll move on. So a couple of young guns, Mason Kira and Emali Batungang. So I got no idea. I'm not even going to try it. Harrison Edwards, Cohen Hess, Carl Lawton, or Jules, Kai O'Donnell, Sam McIntyre, Jewel, Helam Lukey, John Bateman, 505K, sorry for Lukey, John Bateman, 522K, Ruben Cotter, 560K, and Jeremiah Nanai, 619K. Jesse, talk to us. A couple of big names on this list. John Bateman is the question. We obviously always get to our little questions first. So I believe this one from you as well. So the 80-minute, 522.9K man, undervalued question mark. I didn't think that sentence would ever be with John Bateman ever again.
Yeah, I know. There's actually a lot going on for the second rowers, and a little bit of information has come forward. I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see what happens with it, because I was sort of going into it anticipating Bateman to kind of fill that Lukey void now that he's basically out for the season. So I was expecting 80-minute Bateman. That could be fun on the edge, no dramas. And I went back and had a look at some of his just 80-minute stats just in general. Obviously at the Raiders he was a beast. 73-point average at the Raiders, playing 80 on the edge. Dropped 11 points down to 62 at the Tigers. So, at a 62-point average, 80 minutes on the edge, valued at 522, he's undervalued, of course. In a better attacking side, you'd have to think so. Obviously, it begs the diff. Like, the question is always there: is he going to handle the heat? How's he going to go into another club? You know what I mean? Like, we all know what Bateman does. He sort of just gets over it and pulls the plug. But I've seen a little bit about him potentially being through the middle as a lock, or somewhere of the like. And Kai O'Donnell is actually looking like he's a favourite for that edge spot. So a couple things in and around around the town. I have to see, because I'm very keen if that's the case. Kai O'Donnell was never on my radar, and now he is, and he's 336. So
hang on, do you have a little business trip that you just did recently up to Townsville? You just said around the town. Do you have some expenses to claim or something, or what?
Yeah, I'll send you the receipt. Just pay me back tax time.
When did some Supercoach news, met Kai O'Donnell, and you come back with a huge bit of news.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see, because it's I've seen a couple of people talking about it anyway, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll humour this a little bit and see what happens. So yeah, it could make both of them really good options in general, but I don't mind it. Like, Bateman I had Lukey in my very first team at the 500k mark, and I thought, yeah, sweet. Like, I like Lukey's potential. We always know what he can do with big minutes. And then when he dropped out, I just straight up swapped him for Bateman. I thought, yeah, it's just not nice seeing him in a team. There's a lot of stigma around John Bateman. So
I just can't see him being an 80-minute NRL player anymore. That's my thing. Like, what you're saying makes sense, because if you can get like maybe 2 stints or something around the middle and be that sort of player, that probably seems to be more his style now. I just feel like obviously a lot's happened. He was a gun, but we can't keep saying was a gun to players and just expect him to miraculously get that form again when he hasn't had that form for 3 years now. So
yeah, I just think the whole when someone was a gun and they went to the Tigers and they leave, you have to revert to being them was a gun once again. So it's I just can't. I just have to. Any time at the Tigers, I got to write it off like it never happened and just look what happened beforehand. Until they prove me wrong again. So, Trav, I'll let you get in, because there's a lot of options here, and I feel like I've been talking for a while.
Oh, you can keep going. You can keep going.
Right.
There is lots of options. I'll weigh in on Bateman, and then you can go and throw back to you. But actually, I'm really high on Bateman. I think he fills a need that the Cowboys majorly have. And as Jesse, you just said, which I think the challenge for you is to throw a Tigers poor reference somehow in every podcast for the rest of this year. So if you can do that, I've got something for you at the end of the season, right?
It's not hard to do. Sorry. I'm really sorry, Tiger supporters. It makes it sound like I bloody hate him. I don't. It's just, oh, God.
But I'm really high on Bateman this year, and very keen to get him into my team. I think he fills every need that the Cowboys have. I don't have a problem with the fact that he's a POM and that it's hot up there. It is what it is. He's been up there for the preseason. No doubt he probably won't leave his house, and he'll only come out when he's got to go to play and train, or he's on his way between his car and the pub. So I think the pale, skin of a POM will be managed pretty well. So yeah, I have no issues with him in that sort of aspect. I get what you're saying. There's a stigma around some of the behavior and things, but I don't truly buy into a lot of what happened at the Tigers last year. I reckon a lot of this was the Tigers and them finding a way to get rid of him and their rubbish more than Bateman being a pain in the ass. So I don't buy into that as much either. So yeah, I'm pretty keen on him at 522. I think it's a really nice price. I think he can easily put on 100k by round 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is pretty good for a 2RF.
No, definitely. What do you reckon, Joel? What are your thoughts on Bateman?
I'm not going anywhere near John Bateman. I can't believe you guys are saying this stuff so confidently. And I don't want anything to do with him. If you don't want him in my team, goodbye. You can have my word now, everyone. I will never have John Bateman in my Supercoach team ever again. If that ever happens, you can come back, bring this up. There'll be a punishment. It's fine. I will never, ever have him. I don't care if he's doing 100+ games, 4 games in a row. I will not be going near John Bateman.
Why?
That's why you'll come last.
Why? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
He's put 4
I've just
games
said
of
my
100 on,
reasons
and
why.
he puts 4 games on for 100, and you still say no. It makes no sense. That's just stupidity.
Yeah,
Why
don't think
Supercoach.
I don't want it. I don't want the John Bateman saga affecting my boys this year. We're going for the title, and I don't need anyone that's not on the bus. End of story. I want commitment, 110% commitment. Talk to us, Jesse, about these other. You said this is lighting your those sort of fire emojis in your eyes at the moment. This list. Talk to us.
Yeah. Oh, there's just a lot of upside. There's a lot of I wouldn't say upside. A lot of options. So you've got Nanai, obviously 6'19.5". Super try reliant. Obviously scored a mozza of him. I just at his price, it's too dear for me. I don't see it's 1% ownership. I can see it every day. I don't see how 1% really are committing to him, to be fair. So a lot of better options around that 600 mark. There's not a great deal. The floor is quite low. The tries, when they start coming, they're pretty good. But yeah, not for me at that price, but definitely option if he does drop quite a lot, which can happen. I think his price fluctuates quite a bit because it is all about the tries for him. Ruben Cotter has lost his jewel. And unfortunately, he's just lost all sort of relevancy to me at that. So I really liked him as a jewel. I thought he was really nice, handy plug in the front row. I started with him last year, and I ran with him for quite a while too, and it was really good. But yeah, it's always a minutes thing, especially when you're putting that kind of position in your second row when you kind of want the 80 out of him. He's a big minute player though, so like he does get into it, and he's always a good for a point a minute. So 560, I would go Bateman for less, with more upside. Obviously, there's the Kai O'Donnell thing, 336. If it does look like he's going to get a good spot, it's an easy plug. And if you're going to be rolling with that second row position that you're playing with that mid 300s, and it's between like Cohen, Hess, and O'Donnell, just have to keep an eye on it because the potential for O'Donnell is kind of unknown. So I'm always keen to roll the dice with these guys. It was Kai Pearce-Paul last year. He was quite good at the same price coming in. Morgan Smithies was all right for a while too, and then he sort of just plodded along. But you just got to time him, really. Outside of that, there's not too much else. Unfortunately, obviously, Helam Lukey's gone. He could have been a really good one. I was actually really keen to see him get some footy under him again, but another year, no Lukey. So,
What are your thoughts, Trav?
Yeah, pretty much second all of that, or copy it. The only thing I'll say is Nanai is so young and has so much potential. He's played 21 matches last year. He averaged 63 points. And we're talking about how reliant he is on tries, yet he scored 63 points. If he can find a way to score without tries, that's going to improve. He was still a 12th ranked 2RF in the competition. I think I wouldn't start with him, but he's certainly someone I've got a star next to as a watch list because he's only going to get better. Like he's been reliant on tries. He's only going to get a lot better. So definitely, I don't hate the pick for people for trying to pick for potential upside. There's certainly one there for potential upside.
One thing I don't mind, the Cotter move, because I look at the draw, and I know because there's a lot of the better teams to start with, it means he's more involved generally. I actually don't mind that. So look, I'll look back and see some of his numbers, I guess, against some of these more quality oppositions. But I just feel like by the naked eye test, he always is basing quite high when it comes to these sorts of teams, and he's involved, tackling his ass out basically. So I originally was looking at him. I have now not, because first of all, the jewel is a real pain in the backside. So I don't really like that side of it. And just that there's a couple of other options now that have become available. They're a little bit cheaper, and it just helps me do something else to my team. So yeah, but I can see a little argument to have Cotter at the start just to get your stock standard 60 odd points each and every week, no real stress by it. And then while you're watching maybe Tino, and that can be your downgraded Tino after 5-6 weeks, once Tino's minutes hopefully start to increase, if they're not started by getting increased minutes to start with, which is starting to become an early rumor out there about the Titans and Tino. So, yeah, maybe just to wait and see what happens there around those sorts of players.
Yeah, just like he's 30k dearer than Tino. And even still, when I look at a Cotter, I'd just probably look at like a Josh Curran with the duel for, Josh Curran's 546. So he's cheaper. Cotter's got to contend with the exact same run that Robson has when it comes to Origin and the buys and the work. So, that's where I'm looking at it. I'm just like, he's lost the duel. He's a bit dearer than a couple other, I'd say, more appealing options. I just don't see like it's the year for him anymore. We'll have to see. I don't think he's going to be bad by any means, but yeah.
I think Cotter's one of those guys where he's very good in NRL and he's pretty good, okay Supercoach, right? He's just what he does on the NRL field doesn't correlate to really good scores in Supercoach. 57 points is what he averaged last year, and by all means, he had a pretty good year last year. So, yeah, I don't see Supercoach upside in him.
Yeah.
Fair. Very, very fair. Alrighty, the halfbacks. So, Zach Hedigan, 198k. Tom Duffy, starting to become a name a lot of super coaches are talking about. 198k, bottom dollar halfback, was pictured in the Cowboys 7 jersey for Media Day, I believe, and that has got a lot of tongues wagging. And then next man on the list, Jake Clifford, halfback, not 533k. There is rumours Duffy is ahead of him at the moment in the pecking order, which is absolutely huge because a 198k starting halfback can moonwalk naked into my team. I'm telling you right now. So, Jesse, talk to us. Obviously, there's only really one man on this list to talk about, in my opinion. Well, I mean, even if Clifford can get it, he averaged last year 60, so there's still a little bit of value in him. But 533k, you're probably going lower or you're going up to Cleary, I'm imagining.
Yeah, Clifford's in an awkward price point at 530. He's got a hernia surgery I think he's coming back from. So I don't know how long it'll be before we see Clifford back in. And that's the only thing that sort of puts a yellow warning sign up against Tom Duffy because, that price, you're like, geez, give me some of that. But how long is he going to be there for? And if he is a step ahead, then sweet. Just give it some time, let it roll, see how it plays out because it could be really bad too. And then you got a 200k halfback and you're 600k away from, a gun. So that's sort of where I'm a bit hesitant for. But look, man, it could be really, really cool. Again, it's not super relevant for me. Like Clifford looks underpriced by his 60-point average, and I think he's got a big game in him here and there too. But again, awkward price point, and I just want to see what happens when he's actually back fit, if it's his spot, and Duffy's just keeping it warm. So
very fair, Trav.
Yeah, look, Duffy's in my team, but only because I was just praying to God that I can find someone under 200k, and there it was, right? And I said to you last week, I'm buying into the hype trains. I bought into that hype train. It allowed me to do so much with my team. I've got 3 fullbacks, all sorts of things, and I love where my team's sitting right now. But I'm also very, very realistic that ain't going to happen. And I have this bad feeling, right, that we're going to have 198k or people that do pick him, and currently he's in 9% of teams. And I think that's just based on hope and prayers. But I've got this really bad feeling that we're going to have 198k sitting on our bench from round 3 because Clifford will be back early. And it's Clifford's team as a halfback. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So, and I just do not want to get stuck with a forced nuff by round 3 at 198k in a halfback spot where, eventually I want to have 2 halfbacks. So, it's not a good option for me at the moment. Unless he comes through and is played. But I just think it might be better off actually just watching and waiting and seeing. And if he gets the first 2 rounds that are pretty tough, he's got Manly and Sharks. And does all right. If he even gets there, then I can reassess. But at this point in time, he's in my team, but he'll be out soon.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You don't want enough a halfback, but still, like you could probably make a play about a Sandon Smith flex And then if Duffy looks good, then you just put Sandon Smith at hooker and move him up and, drop a hooker for Duffy. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely options you can have because that Sandon Smith flex is really handy.
But I'm not putting
with the jewels.
I'm not putting someone in my flex to cover Duffy at 198 in my halfback spot. Like,
yeah, but if you want to make some quick cash, that's the whole reason you're doing it. Like, Duffy's not going to be your season keeper in halfback, but it could be a ticket to a couple 100K before you do something better. But again, I don't like playing with halfback like that. It's not the position for it.
Tell you what, this flex position has got so many different, it's so funny how when it first opened up and people were able to, it was just 90% of people, Iongi, let's go. Yeah. It's funny now that a bit more thought's gone into it, more planning, and people going, oh, what can we do with it already? And we're still, 4 weeks or 5 weeks until the competition sort of starting. There's already all these different sort of ways about going about it. I love it. There's going to be even more to come. So keep tuning in. I'm sure Jesse will be looking into things a lot and working out the best ways to go about this flex. But at the moment, it seems like it's Iongi or an expensive fullback is the best way to go, in my opinion, and then going from there. But looks like the great man's mind is ticking over. He's ready to just say, no, I've got some other ways to go about this. 5'8", Tommy Dearden. Now, he's 597K in the app. Now, on the screen here, we've got Tom Dearden only 3% ownership. That's changed within about 2 hours because he's now 4%. So people are jumping on at a rapid rate to Tommy Dearden. They're on board the hype train. They've read your mind somehow, Jesse. Talk to us about Tommy Dearden. What's 597K, 4%?
Yeah, I think he's going to run this side more than Clifford will when he gets that spot back
100%.
by a long margin.
Team.
It's his team. It's Clifford's time. Oh, sorry, no, it's Dearden's time to shine. Sorry, I had Clifford on my mind, but yeah, he's ready for it, man. It's time. Like, we've seen it. You saw it last year. He was raring, and I just feel like he's getting so much better every year too, and it's almost come to a head now. Where you think it's got to be a huge breakout, and if it's a 60-point average again or 61 like he got last season, it's still not bad by any means. And I don't think it's ever going to go lower than that for a long while. I think he's just going to get better and better. So the ownership's really low because his price is quite good. And a 5'8" position at the moment is kind of ugly. There's a few options at the 600 and a couple up, but outside of that, like we're only playing really with like 5 or 6 guys at the moment as viable options in the 5'8". And I really like him as an option there too. And, more than like 650 Brown and, 650 Matt Burton, 50K less, he's great. So, yeah, it's just obviously we've spoken about it twice already about the run they have with an Origin, and he's straight into it too. So, you're going to miss him for quite a lot of the time, but there's a fair bit away before we have to worry about that right now. So, I like him.
Trav, you a Dearden fan?
Yeah, I put out one of my predictions is he's a sneaky play for Dally M. I think just what Dearden does and the improvement that he's got for natural progression just results in being seen. So votes for Dally M is huge. I think his progression again this year is going to just go through the roof, and that we know, and as Jesse just said, it's his team. Like, Clifford's going to come in, and as I said, it's Clifford's spot, but Clifford's not the man. Dearden's the man, right? I am one of those 4%, and I've highly recommended to many people who have messaged me or our legends. Dearden is get him. I one of the first things I look at is the 5'8". If I don't see Dearden, I go, I reckon I'm putting all my rocks in on that and all my bank on Dearden this year. I think he's just going to go through the roof. I've got at least a 5-point better average on him. So I'm thinking around 66, 65 at a minimum would be, for me, a pretty acceptable year. I think he's going to get better than that. I'm very high on Dearden. Yeah, he's got the round 7 bye. He more than likely plays Origin. Geez, you'd be a tough man to not have him play Origin, even though Munster is back. They'd have to find a spot for him in Origin unless something happens to him. So, yeah, you navigate some of that, but I've got some plans around it. Like, currently I've got Metcalf sitting in my other spot, so I can manage it that way, or some different ways, or I trade him out over Origin and bring him back later for the end of the year. So, for the end of the run, like, I'm happy to do that too. I'm just very high on Dearden.
Is that first round draft pick I'm hearing?
No.
Well, there's not many 5'8", so it'll be an
There's-
early pick.
He will be
see
an
him-
early pick, yep.
Yeah, definitely.
I would
Target
definitely not be
5'8".
picking him up in my first round, though.
Maybe a
I
couple later.
was just trying to clarify how high you were on him. That was all.
Yeah, he
In
got a
the 5'8",
97.
but high.
He got a 97 and 96 last year. They're his two highest. There's a lot of 60s and 70s in there, though, like in the middle. Only a couple that have dipped below the 50s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just 6 games under 50 points. Very consistent, very steady, and we're expecting his output to increase. Yeah, man, that price, like it's really not bad. I think he's going to be. He's probably got at least 10 points. Somewhere in between 5 to 10 points of value, I would say, this year. Just going off what we've sort of seen out of him.
At least
Honestly,
10 points is a huge call, and I love it
5.
because that's great because I'm very high on him. So
Yeah,
if that's where it goes, let's go.
I can genuinely see it. Like, we've seen him progressively getting better and better. He averaged 61 the year before, 58 the year before, 58.2. So he's hitting that 60 quite comfortably with a game that's getting better. So, like, what's to say he can't push a 68 average? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I think that's quite realistic.
Yep. No, I think you both make some very good points, and I think Tommy Dearden's ownership. Well, next week when we look at all this again, he'll be up to 10%. There'll be a lot of listeners listening to this. They'll chuck him straight in their team. Centre wings. Now we've got it up there. The CTW cheapies save the day ? Now, when I go through this list, I almost want to cut it off because I want to talk more so about these cheapies than I do the expensive ones. But anyway, we'll go through it respectfully. Robert Derby, 214K. Jackson Purdue, 257. Tom Chester, fullback dual, 278K. Jackson Paulo, the new signing from Manly, 335K. Semi Valame, the tank is back, 386K. Zachy Labart, I just love saying that name, 389K. Love what he did to me early last year. Viliami Vailea, 408K. Braden Burns still there, 559K. No, you're not hearing that wrong. 559K with an average last year of 71.5. Out of this world. Murray Tuolangi, 605K as well. Now, when you look at the ownership percentage, the top player, wow, there's a 41%, a 12%, and a 7%. Absolute. This is the cheapy way to go, in my opinion. This Cowboys team, it's going to be a balance of how many to get, but at the same time, when it's a year where we're struggling to find cheapies, I feel like it's only natural to almost jump on them, all of them, because it's just going to be so hard to get to these cheapies. So it's going to be a bit of a sticky situation. But talk to us, Trav. Talk us through this predicament we might be in. It's sort of like, as I said just then, like, I feel like in a way we've got to do it.
Oh, we have to. There's nothing else screaming out to us. So to make our teams, they've got to be in there. I actually think it's probably better to quickly analyze the top and go down this time because the top is not important to us.
Off you go.
Like, you've got like Tuolangi, right, at 605K, average basically 61.8. That's a pretty good average. Like, that's a really good average. But 0% ownership and should be. I don't think anyone should really own him. I think he's a gun. Love him with the way he plays. I love how he goes about what he does in defense. But he's not someone that I'm high on. Supercoach's much better upside and play. Braden Burns, as you said, I mean, I called it last year as well. Like, what the hell's wrong? Like, this dude just puts up numbers and it just doesn't make the team. It doesn't make any sense. So don't go anywhere near him. Is it Vailea? Vailea. Again, no ownership on that. Wouldn't be interested at that. And then we get to Labour. Now, 7%, I'm so surprised because I actually think Labour's got the best upside out of all of them. But I think maybe that 389K is a little bit deterring. But it shouldn't be. You're just going to have to find a way to put him in because for the way that our team's being made with the options that we've got and the knowledge that we've currently got, that 380K is actually cheap. Like a 390K is actually cheap for what it's looking like. and can't believe he's only 7% owned. I think he's someone you've got to get in and make your team work. Jackson
Just with that as
Parlow.
well.
Go.
Sorry, I also feel with Labour, he's in your first 4 centre wings.
3 guns, and then Laybud as the 4th. So he's currently sitting as my 4th player on my centre wings as well. I think he's in yours too, Jesse.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah. So Joel's point's correct. Like, he's definitely someone with the potential that he's got at 389 to be sitting there in your starting team for sure. So I'm just so surprised that at 7%, that's all he's owned. I'm not high on Jackson Paolo at all. More so just because I don't know a lot about him just yet. I know he's new to the club, but I don't think he's got a spot yet. He might be someone that he pops up as a downgrade target later on, but that's about sort of that. And then Tom Chester, I'm not interested in. What do we got? Jackson Purdue at 41% is incredible. How's that ownership for that per dude? Is it 257?
Through the roof.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's through the
madness.
roof. But again, you have to have him, right? At that price, we know he's starting, has potential. Like, he played 8 games last year at 26, but there's reasons why, right? There was just the spots weren't there for him. You had Val Holmes, you had Felt. You've got Nanai, you've got Talangi, you've got all these guys. Like, Nano shifted into the centers at times. So like there's all these dudes that are playing. He just didn't have that spot, yet still put up a 26 over 8 games. So he's definitely someone you've got to keep. I need help because until I looked at this afternoon, I don't know anything about Derby, to be honest, and he's 12% owned. So I'd love some clarity around Derby. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm looking.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole Derby thing. I think it's just the price. I think people are just trying to look for potential options in the cashy side, and when they sort of come out of the woods, we'll see that change maybe quite a lot. But yeah, obviously, like, a couple of the guns up there, Talagi, Burns can be a freaking weapon on his day as well. Like, you just have to see what the team looks like now with no Holmes. There's a position that's opened up, and we're expecting, by ownership and even just like mine and your thoughts in general, Purdue and Laybot are the centers, and I see it. I sort of would expect that, to be honest with you. And I think like Laybut's locked into my side. Both of them are, to be fair. I've just gone straight to both and kept with the ownership. And I think their price points are fantastic. I think Laybut's got a massive ceiling. And like his base is quite low. He's played 8 games for the Cows in the last 2 years. Kind of patchy, but he's got scores of a 26, a 46, a 91, a 65, a 103, which is in round 1 last year, where everyone sort of jumped straight onto him. Went 26 after that, 23, and then a 47 in 19 minutes, which looked like he was going to be on for an absolute freaking monster of a score. And then he did his ACL. I think it was ACL.
Yeah.
So, like, he can go boom big time. And for 380k, lock him in. I'm super keen on that. But pretty much nothing else going on in there for me. Just those 2 boys.
Yeah, just those 2. But I mean, I'm very eager and would love someone to talk to me about Derby at 12% ownership. So
with nothing to go off. So
so I haven't heard anything. I mean, I had a look at it when I was looking at this ownership about it. I can't read much about it. The club hasn't really said anything about it. So I'm not sure why there's 12% that are owning him. Maybe they've got some news that we don't have. So we're going to need to get that if you can and send it to us, because I'm very eager. But
100%.
I'd be highly suggesting to everybody to get Laybut and do whatever, and Purdue, which most have for Purdue. But Laybut is definitely a must-have. I'm calling that now. And that center wing has saved our lives in terms of Supercoach for the mid-price or the cheap madness that we need.
Yeah, definitely. His base is quite low, but God, he can go massive. So just get him in, ride the wave. But the big talking point, really, the one that I sort of want to get to is the fullback, Mr. Scotty Drinkwater himself. I'm going to call it massively underpriced. Easy player to plug into your fullback slot. No questions. Just get him in. I love it. 770 for Scott Drinkwater. I freaking love it. He couldn't be in my team fast enough. to be honest with you, and I just have to work out what I'm doing with my other fullback and my flex position if I'm putting 2 other fullbacks in there, guns. But I cannot take him out. He's so good.
So 78 average last year, 78.7, played 24 matches. Is he going to play Origin? Nope. So the only time he's missing matches really is for buys. He averaged 78.7. All the talk, and I think actually it was announced that he's kicking. How many points does that equate to extra in your expert opinion, Jesse?
I would say at least a 12-point bump.
12-point bump. So that's going to put him to 90, and we can get him at 770, right? So we're talking Teddy price right there.
Exactly.
And we can get him for 770. It's just, to me, a no-brainer, and I'm so shocked when I looked at this because I picked Scott Drinkwater first. Actually, no, I didn't. I didn't pick Scott Drinkwater in the team picker first. My second team had Scott Drinkwater once I actually looked at it, because I was like, no, I need to have I wanted to start Latrell Mitchell, and I wanted to start Ponga. That were my 2 first fullback picks. Then when I properly looked at it, I probably looked at the draw. I did all that. I'm like, no, I've got to go Turbo, and I've got to go Drinkwater now that I know that he's kicking, or that I think he's drinking.
He's drinking.
That I know that he's kicking. So, like, it's just incredible. We've just got to have it. You just got to pick him.
Yeah, he's a very confident lock in my side. I really like it. I think I paid he was 890K last year, or 840K, something like that to start. It was a
starting
lot.
price. Starting price was 851. End price, he ended at 789.
He's back.
Hello.
We've got a blackout. Live podcasting, got a blackout. I've hotspotted to the phone so to get everything back up. Hopefully it's good quality. It should be. It's all 5G in that now, so we should have decent internet now, but let me know if it's good or not.
That's fantastic. We were just talking about the GOAT himself, Scott Drinkwater.
The GOAT.
Oh.
The GOAT.
Surely you both said he has to be in the team.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, stoked on him. I had him so long last year. He doesn't get injured. He doesn't play Origin. He's super reliable, super consistent. He's kicking goals now. Just get him and enjoy it, because he can do amazing things. I love that pickup.
I'm spewing I've missed that cheapy chat, because that was getting me going. I loved it.
Just have to go back and listen to it again. But we
basically
said...
Apologies, guys. Apologies. I'll
great.
try and edit all this so it's not a huge distraction to what's happened. So
your whole area of power going out is out of your control, Joel. That's just life. We'll be right.
Technology, how good. And I've got literally the phone light shining on me to make sure. So my eyes are copying it, but I'm doing this for you guys. We've got a huge community now, and got to make sure we produce to you guys what we can. So
love that. Well,
what else is that it?
That's it. Cowboys.
Thanks, Cows.
Thank you, Cowboys. Well, there you go. Everything, all talking points are done and dusted. And Scotty Drinkwater, I'm telling you now, number 1 draft pick, right here, telling you right now. So all those in draft.
He's an easy first rounder.
League of Inches Div 1 comp. Drinkwater, number 1. Alrighty.
Last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I ended up with him, and I think I was 8th at the time. So I was happy to have Drinkwater in my team in the long run. It hurt me come finals, but I had the 2 big Cowboys guns. I think I had both him and Dearden, I'm pretty sure. And it hurt me not having either of those when it mattered most. It got me in that knockout final, unfortunately. Alrighty, so the Sydney Roosters, their first 5 rounds, the Broncos at home, Panthers away, Warriors away, Titans at home, South away. I've seen better starts, but it's not the worst start either. Like, obviously the first 2 games are going to be probably tough, and then go from there. What are we thinking here, boys? I'm going to have to actually turn the reins over to one of you guys to go through the positions, because I can't use my phone because it's using my light. So, Jesse, if you're able to turn into sort of the host, I guess, in a way, that'd be awesome. On the spot, changing out. This is fantastic. I hope you all enjoy this one.
Yeah. So in the hooker spot, we've got Tyler Moriarty at 198K. Sandon Smith with a dual half as well at 237. Brandon Smith at 400.9k, and Connor Watson, 2RF and hooker at 583. I'm just going to go straight to you, Trav. The hookers. Obviously, we've got no Brandon Smith. Realistically, we don't have, well, I say we as the Roosters, we don't really have a hooker right now. We've got Connor Watson, and I don't really see him sharing minutes with anyone because I don't really see anyone else taking him off him. So are we going into this with an 80-minute Connor Watson at hooker?
I was just going to say, I was going to cut you off before because you said we don't really have a hooker. And then I went, hang on, are you forgetting that you've got frigging Connor Watson, probably the best best utility in the comp? And I went, and then I just thought, and then you mentioned him, and I'm like, oh, yes, that. And now, so to answer your question, yes, you've got an 80-minute hooker in Connor Watson to play the year, and how bloody exciting is that for everybody as a in Supercoach, and how much does that how much does that put him on your radars? He isn't on my radar, but God, he's on 18%. He's owned by 18% at the moment. So I think that just speaks volumes around what he can do and what he's going to do. 18%, just so everyone knows, is actually in the top 25 players, I think, from memory. So 18% is really well owned.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. And he has only played 2 games at hooker last year for the Roosters. Everything else was sort of interchange and lock, but he rotates so much, so his stats are quite hard to work out. But sorry, what did he know? He played 4, but a couple of patchy minutes, but 3 of them 70 points, 58 points, 53 points. Man, I just see great value. He's in my team at the moment. I was able to find a bit of extra coin, and I went straight up to him. And I really like having those dual with the hooker slots, especially with Sandon Smith there too. So I can just pick one, kind of move things around a little bit. But I like it. I think he's got a great deal of upside. I can't find any reason to knock it. It's a lot of money to spend up at hooker, but he's a jewel. He's a second.
Did you put him in hooker?
Yeah. Yep. I've got him at hooker. So, yeah. What about you, Joel? What do you reckon on just the hookers in general? Watson specifically, I'd say.
Yeah, look, Watson's not the one I want to talk about, but I can kind of see where you're going with it. At the same time, I'm just so headstrong on Brayley at the moment. I just really want to just pick him and just leave him and don't have to worry about hooker and let obviously my second choice, which will be Sandon Smith, sitting there, hopefully gaining quite a fair bit of cash this year. That's just what I'm looking at moving forward for that position. So I don't really want to overthink it at all. I'm sick of it. I did a bit last year and got a bit mixed up with it all. So I want to talk more so Sandon Smith. And you mentioned, I think, a bit earlier when we were talking about the Cowboys, this whole weird and wacky thinking you've got about, I know on the screen there it says the dual cheapie we need. Goal kicking as well, potentially. I think that's almost certain now. I think it's almost been confirmed by the Roosters. And he's obviously got the hooker half dual, but you seem to have another extra little dash thing there, and you want to put flex.
Yeah, I just think it gives you a lot of options. It gives you the possibility to move a cheaper hooker out. If, say you don't want to run Iongi, you want to watch and see what happens, you can put Sandon Smith there in the flex, and then you can bin one of your cheap hookers and get him. If prices come through and Iongi breaks out first 2 rounds and he's got a mad break even, sweet, just drop one of your cruddy hookers that you weren't really doing much with, move Sandon Smith up there and get a Iongi in. You just got to wait and see what happens there. Look, his value is massive. In 80-minute games, mainly at half, between 23 and 24, average 53.9. So, we're talking near bottom dollar, dual position, bank, and he's kicking too, and he wasn't in those games. So, yeah, man, he could be anything. Like, he could be huge, and he's the most owned player in Supercoach right now. I believe at 56%. Which will probably just go up. I don't understand what the other people not having him are doing. Like, it should be a 90% ownership. Like, I just can't see any reason to not have him. There's so much upside there. It genuinely is. Yeah. It's just screaming.
Do you slot him in your halfback or hooker? Where do you think's best?
I've currently got him in hooker. But at the same time, like I'm running with dual Roosters hookers currently. But again, this changes daily, so don't take too much. But it just depends on what the other hookers look like. I want to see what the whole Mamazelis thing looks like. Moser's been on. People are talking a lot about Moser right now too. So outside of the cheapies for the hooker slot, I don't really think there's too many options outside of those two. But again, I don't expect them to play big minutes, and I expect 80 from him. I expect 80 from Watson. Like there's a lot more upside with those two, and a lot less of a headache. And that's why, if you were going to do that dual thing around and you do have a Mamazelis and he just doesn't do what we expect him to do, you can move him on and still cover that spot. So
I think, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the Rabbitohs. I think it's next week. Oh, whenever it is, sorry. But I think Mamazelis is a bit of a trap. I think the Humphreys play there is just going to be annoying, and Mamazelis isn't cheap, like fully cheap. Like he's 300 odd K, early 300K. So I'm just not sold on it. I think Sandon Smith's best spot is the hooker spot. And I actually hear something for you, which you're going to find funny after how you spoke about Connor Watson. But I've become much more higher on Connor Watson than I am on IPAP. And I think that Connor Watson should be a better pick than IPAP, and I would prefer that he would be in my 2RF than my hooker. But I'm also the same with Joel, is that I'm very high on just plugging Brayley and just sitting there for the year with him. So I want to do that. So I'm actually thinking I might change, or either I try and find the way to make Connor Watson my third 2RF, or I change IPAP to Connor Watson. I think it's a really good play. The more I've researched and what I'm getting from Watson, knowing that he's an 80-minute hooker at that Roosters team at this point, I think this is a bit of a no-brainer play.
Yeah, I love it. I think he's got a lot to prove up there too. 80 minutes is so good. Man, Cheese can stay on the sidelines for a little longer, unfortunately. We can go. Is there nothing else really in the hookers? They're pretty good options at the moment. Front row. Xavier Va'a, 198K. Ethan Roberts, 198. Va'a again, there's brothers, both of them, 232. Then we get into the appealing ones right here. Nafahu White, dual position, 367. Spencer Leniu at 393 and Lindsay Collins at 422. They're cheap. These guys are cheap. Lindsay Collins with a 43 average is a massive drop on what he does, in the past in general. But the dearest front rower in that team is 422, and I can make an argument to start with any three of them. And I've currently got White in my side as well. Not so much on the others, but Trav, what do you reckon about just the prop situation with the Roosters and like the rotation side of things? Because there's not many left.
No, there's we've made it. There's a point here on the slideshow, mid-range team to target, and here's the start, right? They've got mid-range prices or cheap prices across the board, and front row forward is it. Nafar White, 31% owned, played 20 games last year, 367. He's going to get more minutes this year. He's projected to start. I think he's a no-brainer as a cheapie just to plug on your bench. He's also the dual 2F FRF. I think he's the better play at FRF at this point, and he's my fourth FRF. That's just an exciting pick, and I'm keen to get that. The next one up is Spencer Leniu, and there's lots of chatter around Spencer Leniu and what he can do. 393, 6% owned at the moment, so there are a few people taking a bit of a gamble on him. Someone's got to step up for everything that's happened and what's left the Roosters, and we all know that Leniu's a beast, yeah? So he's an absolute monster. I think he's got potential at least, even if he only sort of pushes maybe to a 50, that's still a big price rise for us. And in that front row forward, that's gold mine, right? If he can get himself to around that 500K, by that point in time, we're able to bank some money there. That's definitely a good opportunity to upgrade to anyone, really, I think. So I think Leniu's really hard to pass, but a really good option. And I'll let you talk more about Lindsay Collins, because I know you're quite high on him with some of the talk that you've been talking about.
Me or Joel?
Jesse.
Yeah, well, like Collins just traditionally is a workhorse. And I just think his output was so low in general. When you start looking at these sort of things, he averaged 54.8 in 2023, and it was on a back of a 57-minute sort of average for the season. So it was solid with a 51 base. So that base dropped by 7 points. It's quite significant, for no real particular reason. I can see him being the guy that steps up. I look at Lenu. He's played 4 games over 45 minutes ever. You know what I mean? And that's between the Panthers and the Roosters. There's not many to choose from. Quite low output, low base. He's an impact guy. So it's going to be a big shift for him. And I really wanted to see Terrell May there, obviously. But again, we can't keep flogging that horse. He's gone and he's still locked into my side. But yeah, just on Lenu's 4 games over 45 minutes, it was a 51 average of minutes. And he averaged 33 in base. So it's low. It's not good. There's not really any attacking upside there. He's exciting to watch. I think he's got a great game about him, in the real life sense of things. But I just don't think he translates very well at all. I think when it comes down to it, I think Collins probably would more so, just in work rate. But yeah, White's the guy. Nafahu White's sort of where I'm looking at. The dual position's really nice. He's cheaper than the other two. But I do expect Collins. I can see him making 100K way sooner than I can see Lenu pushing up any higher than he sort of is at the moment. So, and 1% owned on Collins too. It's nothing. Not exciting, but definitely a safe play. You can't really do much worse than what he's on at 422K. What about you, Joel? What do you reckon?
I think you both covered pretty much everything. What I'll say more so sort of at an NRL point of view is they've also not just lost May, they've lost Jared Hargraves. They've lost a big chunk of minutes there between both of those. And the big thing with May was he was always the one that would fix if there was an early injury, a HIA, things like that. He'd go, Robson would throw him on and just go play me 60-odd minutes. You look at the players now that they've got, the one player that probably you could get that out of because he's done it in the past is Collins. And you probably, if we're thinking out loud, it probably was his quietest year, I reckon, so far in a number of years for Collins. I used to rate him really, really highly, up there with the top props in the game. After last year, that's probably come back a little bit, and I think there's been a few more that have just gone ahead of him. So I think he'll have a point to prove. I think he'll feel that this year as well, being that main guy there at the pack. He's been at the Roosters now for a while, so I reckon he will step up. I think that's a great pod sort of play, and it's not an expensive pod play either. Like, it's someone that you can get away with. It fits in quite nicely. It's probably your second prop there next to May, and sort of away you go with it. Like, if he can get you for that 50-odd points, you're laughing every week. Just get him to do his thing. Spencer's a funny one because it just feels like, I remember this time last year we spoke about Spencer going, oh, yep, get him in your team. He's got to explode now. Now he's got 2 less members to sort of compete with, but we're sort of still sitting here going, oh, don't know. I don't think anything can happen here because he is so good at that impact player role. Like, get him on for a 30-minute stint. He tears the place apart. Bring him off before he does something too stupid to get suspended for 5-6 weeks. So, but that's just him, and he does it so well. So don't swallow your pride a little bit. I know all these players want to be starting, but that's his role. Let Nafahu maybe start at the start and see what he's doing. Nafahu, I'm with you. Nafahu is the one that I'm really keeping an eye on as well. And just sort of that duel is huge. And I think it's probably to start the year, one big thing I recommend is trying to get those dual players as many as you can, especially when there's one where it's quite close price-wise. If there's one player there with a dual, that should be getting your vote every time because it helps you and frees you up so much down the track throughout the year to make other different moves and things like that.
Yep. And just on the Fahu White as well, I'm sort of going into the thing expecting or hoping to see him get a starting lock position. We might see Radley on the edge like he was last season, but it just depends. I think that'll be the next point when we get into the 2 RFs. In 40-plus minute games for Nafahu White, averaged 50.7. Last year had a 68-minute game, scored 73, 54 scored 53, 43 scored 51, 46 scored 35. They're at lock. So massive, the potential.
Come on down.
It's huge.
Yeah.
With a dual, mid 300s, I just think you can't really go wrong with it. Anything else, boys? Front row?
I'm with you, Captain.
We'll move on. Second rowers. Geez, it's a bit thinner, but there's still plenty of them. Ethan Roberts 198, Blake Steep 232, Egan Butcher 310. God, he's dropped a bit. CR Wong 318, Nafahu White, obviously we just spoke about him. Victor Radley 542k, Nat Butcher 553, Connor Watson again at 583, and the big man Angus Crichton at 758.7. The number one 2RF.
Big dog.
Trav. Yeah, the big dog. Trav. Take us away, mate.
I mean, he is the number one 2RF. He's the best 2RF in the comp at the moment. The way he played last year, what he did for Supercoach, 77-point average, played 20 games, was just a beast, right? And the best thing about it was that we were able to get him really cheap last year off the back of a couple of low games, and then off he went, and we all just went, yep, thank you very much. He's plugged in. I'm sitting there with him. I can't justify 758k on him this time of the year with my problems and what I've got across the board. I just can't put him in. I think there's other guys there. Do I think they're going to score like Angus Crichton? No, I don't think they do. But I just can't afford him. So this is one of those ones where I know Crichton's going to score well. He's going to get big scores. He's going to get around. He's going to continue to keep that 77, maybe push it up a little bit more because he's going to have to do a fair bit more work. But I'm going to have to miss out on it early because I just can't afford him. I can't have him. The other one I'm sort of looking at who's been playing in my team is Suo Wong. Currently 5% owned. I have him at 318k. He's sitting in my 2RF, and I'm eagerly watching to see what happens and the news that happens there, where it is that he's got that spot as a replacement to come in. So I think he does have the other edge from what the word that I've heard. But whether it's still 22nd of January, we're still a fair way away. So I'm eagerly and keen to be watching Suo Wong. And I'm not interested really in anyone else below that. Ethan Roberts has got an 8% ownership, but I don't know much about and why that is because I don't reckon he's going to play. I don't think he's going to be there. So yeah, and you're looking at it.
He's enough. He's a dual nuff.
Yeah, I'm just.
He's the Viliami kick-out of last year. Oh, Fafita, sorry, the Viliami Fafita of last year.
I look. My opinion is, and people have asked me about this, is I don't want enough until Origin. So I need as much and as many people in my team playing and making cash. And allowing me to build my bank and do what I need done and fill my spots. I can't afford to have just one. This year, I can't afford to just have one. I can't afford one enough just yet to start the year. It just doesn't make sense to me. So it doesn't. I just don't get it. But yeah, that's it for me for the 2RF.
With the with the edge, it's so Wong. It's white. You see what I did there? Thank you.
God, that was incredible. Good job.
That's your team name.
Thank you.
So Wong, that's white. That is actually really good. Yeah, that should be up there.
You.
Forget inch at a time.
And you should use white. You should use the name White, WHYTE, just to match the Roosters name too.
That's what I was doing. That's the whole thing.
Just straight over. Oh, God, love it. So the question on the screen there is who partners Angus Crichton on the edge there? And so you believe it's Sia Wong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'd love to see it.
Can I
super high?
Just quickly before you move on to that, just one more thing I want to mention with Angus Crichton. I actually can make so many valid arguments why I actually think he'll score more this year. He will do more work. That's the crazy thing. When I'm with Trav, I just can't get there, and it pains me. I can't. I'm just going to be watching, just hiding behind a pillow whenever the Roosters play. Just like, don't get the ball to Angus. Don't get the ball to Angus. Then probably look at his score every week, and it's about 85 at least at a minimum. My other only concern with him is just how he gels with a new halves partner for the majority of this year, basically, because it's either going to be Townsend or Sandon Smith that will play on his edge of the field. And obviously had a really good relationship there, built up with last year's halves, and neither of them are there, at least for half the year in Sam Walker. So he's got to adapt. He's got to get used to new halves. And for an edge back row and a half, that's a huge thing. So they'll be working overtime, I'm imagining at the moment, trying to make sure they're timing the runs and stuff, especially the half, whoever is with him, because they know they'll have the pressure with Angus, who's, in my opinion, probably the best second rower in the competition, if not very, very on par with Liam Martin. And they've got to make sure that they get their passing right, their timing right, because Angus will be there. He's done it all last year, giving the ball.
Put it to both of you. Overs or unders on a 77 average?
Over.
I'm going over. I'm actually sickly going over, and it's gonna pain me to not have him for like majority of the year at the moment, because you won't get him early. Then you'll be thinking Origin, so you'll be like, I'll wear it, and then what? The run home, bring it.
Why not just make it happen?
Because he's so expensive. 758K. It's just too hard. I just don't. I can't find that cash.
Yeah. 5% can. That's a lot of people still, though. I really like it. I've actually had him in a side, and I'm like, oh, shit. It's a lot of money, hey? Like, you start looking at that kind of money in your center wing, and you basically get everyone. And you think, geez, like, where's the upside? Do you chase, you're saving 50K on Karaz? Like, that's, it makes it really hard. But, yeah, I suppose it really just depends on who the other side is. If it's Wong, then you would have to think Radley's the lock. And then White, where does he play? Off the bench? Probably half decent minutes anyway. So it just makes Wong even better of an option at 318. And I think that 5%, if that is the case, is going to jump to probably 40, give or take.
There's a surname that the coach loves, and it's Butcher.
Butcher.
I'm very, very concerned about the Butcher brothers and magically appearing at on that 12 jersey. So
they're always
see it happen.
They always pop up. I don't think you can ever get rid of them. And to be fair, Nat Butcher's great.
They've done a job many
look
times,
past him.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our second row options at the Roosters. Onto the halves. Geez, there's 5 listing, and we've not really got one. So
they need them. They need them.
Yeah. Toby Rodwell, 198. Jake Elliott, the dual halfback, 5'8" at 198 as well. Sandon Smith again with the beautiful dual. Chad Townsend at 421.9 and Sam Walker at 640. So obviously Sam Walker will miss half the season. Really unfortunate. Yeah, well, they're wishful. What a war. Keepers League. Keepers Classic. Chatty Townsend, 421.9 will be the starting halfback at 1% ownership. Any interest there, Trav?
That's a hard no.
Joel?
No.
Yeah,
not going there.
There's very little to sort of touch on in this one. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of.
We touched on Smith. You could put Smith in your halfback spot as your second player. That's an easy play, but we already spoke about him within the hooker spot. Yeah,
his value is incredible. Obviously, between half, hooker, flex, wherever you want to put him, you just got to have him in your side somewhere. But yeah, I don't want to get involved with Chad Townsend. If he does get the kicking, it might make him a half viable 400K. But again, I like Isaiah Katoa for a bit less. At 390, you know what I mean? And he's going to run that side, and that's a very similar price bracket.
Ilias is another one.
Yeah, and then you can drop down to even Dodd as well. So there's a few cheaper halfbacks with more potential upside than a Chad Townsend. So yeah, 1% valid. I think the halfback slot at the moment without Sam Walker is actually quite dead. So
is it crazy to say? Yep. I think it's more likely that Sandon Smith gets the reins to this team than Chad Townsend. Obviously, last year, towards the back end of the year, I think Sandon Smith had a couple of really good games where he did stand up, and especially once Walker obviously was injured. We remember that finals game that he tore the house down. A bit more confidence, probably knowing all throughout the preseason that he's one of the main playmakers there at that team now, if not the main one. Chad Townsend obviously got dropped to reserve grade last year out of nowhere, but for a lot of people, I feel like. But at the same time, probably didn't have the greatest of form either. So it's not like he's going there, one of the best halves in the competition. He's going there, obviously, gotten on with age. It was always a signing that was a head scratcher for a lot of people when it first happened. Now it worked out well with losing their half that they did in Sam Walker. But yeah, there's a part of me that feels like Sandon Smith might be getting that bit more of a role, and Chad Townsend might be taking a bit more of a backward step here.
Yeah, I see it happening. I think he might just, his leadership bit of experience, the age kind of thing might just sort of let him sit back, direct a bit more, and then kind of let Smith just run it all, which would be really nice, and it's obviously going to improve his output even better. So, yeah, positives overall. The 5'8" slot, Jesus, what 5'8" slot? We have one Jake Elliott who probably will not feature, unfortunately. 198k. First time I've ever seen this happen. Nothing. Anything there, boys? 5'8".
Well, he's 4% owned.
Good for enough. I've got him in my side at the moment, actually.
He's.
Didn't you say you heard some news about him? He was like in the talk or something.
Yeah, there's talk. There's talk that he's going to play, or he's going to be there 5'8". So there's a little bit of talk and whisper around that. But I just think to start off with, it'll be Townsend and Smith, and then they'll just see how that plays out and what goes on. Elliott's probably a later play, if anything. But as Jesse said, he's currently in my team, but only because I'm craving a 198k or somewhere. So look, I'll get him out, but and watch with eagerness, because if he does get picked, there's scoring potential from what I've researched and what I've seen. So there's definitely some eagerness there, but not to start with.
God, everyone at the Roosters is so cheap, isn't they? Jesus. Into the centres, Robert Toyer, bloody hell, 51%. Robert Toyer, 198k. Billy Smith, 317. Mark Nawangwanitawasi. I can't say it. I try.
One very close, mate. Well done. Proud of you.
Close enough. Yeah, I've still got all preseason to worry about it. So 438k. Junior Porga, 604k. Bloody hell. Daniel Tupou, 674. And Dom Young at 701. These positions just getting thinner and thinner, unfortunately. There's not really too many options. Obviously, Robert Toyer, massive talking point, obviously. It seems like he's, in the mix of things more than like Billy Smith is at the moment. So 51% owned, 198k. I think he's kind of the cheapie of dreams if he does get a spot. Is there anyone in this centre spot that actually appeals to you boys? Trav?
Toyer, certainly.
Yeah.
And so I've got him. Billy Smith is 25% owned. There's interest in him, but apparently he's disappeared. Like, there's just no talk about him. Like, what's going on? Like, I've tried to research everything, and I can't find anything about him. Apparently, to start off in January, he wasn't even training. So something was screaming to me about having another injury or something. Nawangwanitawasi. Yeah, I reckon I got there. I reckon I got it right the third time.
I don't think so.
Great.
No, I definitely did.
I'll give you that.
I'm certainly keen on him. Holy moly. At 438, I have a feeling that I'm going to run two guns, two cheap 400 players in my center wings. And I'm looking at Karaz Garrick, and then Howarth, and then Nawangwanitawasi. And then Laybutt's going into my onto the bench for sure, because I'm just so high on what I think he can do. Apparently, he's just killing it, braining it in training. All the talk is that, so I'm very keen on that. And geez, I feel for Daniel Tupou. The dude put out basically 69 points, right? And no one talks about him.
What's that name?
Daniel Tupou. What? Anyways, he's at 69. He basically averaged 68.9, and he's in 0% of teams, and no one talks about him. We didn't talk. We barely spoke about him last year, and he consistently puts up decent numbers. And then you've got like Dom Young is at 1%. 1% at 700k though. So it's either you take Dom Young at 700k, who averaged 71.6, or you buy Karaz at 702. I know I'm taking Karaz over Dom Young every day, but why? I'm sitting there thinking, why?
Well, you've lost Manu, you've lost Sam Walker. It's a lot of players, you know what I mean? Like, Dom Young can do it on any given day. He's actually got quite good base. So there's a lot of losses in that side, and it's just on his end too. So you're thinking like, what's he going to do? You have to expect him to drop a bit. But yeah, Tupou, bloody hell, he's just forgotten, isn't he? He only just averaged less than Dom Young, which is insane. Outscored him in 2 more games, obviously, but yeah, 0%, and it will probably stay like that too. He'll be the pod dream player for the rest of the year. What about yourself, Joel? A couple of these guys on your side?
Yeah, I got Toya. Obviously, whenever that sort of priced outside back is almost guaranteed an 80-minute spot, it feels like for now, or at least touted by their coach at one point, then everyone gets on. I can't see at the moment what the percentage is of him owned, but I'm guessing it is very, very high, one of the highest owned at this present time. If not, probably need to get on it. But it's a weird one because every other preseason for the last probably 4 years, we keep hearing Billy Smith. I feel like this is, in a way, the Roosters' reverse psychology. Now, he's had a horrible run of injuries, and now if they're not talking about him and they just hype up someone else, we might get a full year of Billy Smith, and that will just be out of this world. He'll be one of the highest owned players in Supercoach within about 4 weeks, I reckon, if we can get some consistent football out of Billy Smith. I reckon he's a gun, and I reckon his Supercoach game would kill it as well. So hopefully that's the case. We do get to see him get through a full year. I think every fan out there would like to see Billy Smith consistent football. Definitely on my radar. The funny thing here is Tupou, Nwanga Wingatasi, and
exactly what
Young
I said 3 times.
need to be in this team. So 2 of those will be on the wing. So I'm guessing that's going to be Dom Young and Tupou. And then Nwanga Wingatasi, I'm just going to imagine, I haven't heard anything confirmed by this, but I'll be putting him at center.
He's training.
I don't know if he's a center yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not on him yet. I need to watch and wait and see. The other thing I need to mention is no one has mentioned being high on the Roosters this year. But so far in this conversation, we've spoken about possibly 10 guys that almost is in our team. So it's got to be a time where we start to weigh it up as well, because you don't want to have too many of them. We do think the Roosters will struggle, especially early on this year. Not dramatically, like there won't be a wooden spoon team, but there just won't be the Roosters that we have been used to for some time now. And how much is that going to equate to Supercoach points? Because they're missing that those halves steering him around the park, that highly attacking football that someone like Joey Manu can produce for him. They're missing all that. So it's a lot, that intimidation of Jared Rea-Hargraves and that forward in May that can come off the bench and just fix a hole and plug things and just keep going. So they're missing a hell of a lot. And it's just, I want to get a few of these because of the price point, but at the same time, I also want to watch the first few games just to see how things are playing out and probably get past that first 2 games, because that'll be some tough games for them.
Yeah, definitely. So just I'm keen on Nwanga Wingatasi as well. He's in my side. He's got a 64 in his 1 game, and he's priced at a 438. So yeah, it's just it's a watch and see what happens with the Roosters. You know, we expect them to be quieter, and you know, it's a different side. It's a whole different generation of the Roosters now. So there's every potential. There's all the chance that he succeeds and he takes off with it. And I'm happy to roll that dice at his price point. It's not damaging. You don't have to rip your side apart to fit him in there like you would a Dom Young. Say that goes bad, then you've got problems. But I was super keen on Billy Smith before everything came out. I was so keen on him. I was stoked. I was like, yep, Billy Smith. I was expecting his price to be way dearer too, and trying to work out where he's going to sit. Obviously at 317, he was a lock in my side. And now that I'm seeing he's not training, he's barely there, I'm like, I've gotten a lot colder on him. Played 26 games since 2019. He's had a horrible run. Yeah. Has a career average of 47. So value, obviously, but it's just dependent on if he can stay on the park. Like, he just going off that. What's that? 6th year now coming in, played 26 games. It's just, it's a horrible record.
Doesn't that just show you how big the Roosters rate this bloke as well, this kid? Like, anyone else would be long gone. They wouldn't be rude of it, but they'd just be like, realistically, you've played 26 games in 6 years. They rate him that highly, and I think the comp rates this guy that highly. They've still got him there. They're still persisting out of the hope they get like 20 games out of him of the Billy Smith quality that we know he's capable of. Like, huge raps for a club like the Roosters who have just been stacked throughout the years. Obviously, not saying he's on a huge wicket, so it makes it probably a bit easier for the Roosters. At the same time, just to keep that sort of player, it's huge.
Yep, definitely. Priced at 32. Me base is 32. It's only upside. He just needs to stay fit. The final man to really talk about is the one, Mr. Number 1 of Supercoach of 2024, James Tedesco, 920k. Question on the screen here. Surely we can't afford Tedesco. I bloody can't. What about you?
Well, I mean, we can afford him if we skimp out pretty much everywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem, right?
Mm.
I said to everyone last year, I said, and constantly said, geez, I wish I had Teddy, and I owned him for 1 week last year. And I was like, I've just got to do it. But I can't. At 920k, I just cannot do it. I also think that based off what's happening at the Roosters and what's going on, I can't do it either, because I think when Teddy has to play too much, and I think he gets a bit too much of the responsibility, Teddy kind of, I don't know how to talk about it without it sounding nasty. It doesn't rub off in terms of, errors come in. It doesn't rub off in Supercoach plays, right? Teddy's a gun, but when he has to try and do too much, it doesn't relate, and we've got a problem. And Teddy's going to have to do that this year. Granted, this year he's got to do it, and he'll be doing it with on the preface that he's had a whole preseason like this, so he's practicing with the team in the situation it's in, whereas normally when he has to do this, it's because other things have happened throughout the year, and it's just at the click of a finger, I've got to adjust and play. So maybe that changes it, but still at 920k on history that says when he's got to do too much, I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, Joel, anything to add on that?
He's my flex. No, he's not. He's not my flex. That would be the ultimate flex. The ultimate flex right there. No, I'm with Trav. Literally copied my point. I was gonna literally say it from word. Normally, when we hear that like a player has to step up and play more, we love it. We lick our lips and go, "Yeah, we need to get that guy. That's going to mean more points." But for Tedesco, unfortunately, I go back to 2023 Tedesco, where he started to get a bit of criticism, and that was purely because of that reason. He started to overplay his hand, got too involved, and unfortunately at the start of this year, for the first 12 or 13 weeks, he's going to have to play similar to that due to the injuries and the player departures, I think. The lack of potential quality around as well. So, yeah, it's too much. If he was around the 800 mark, maybe entertaining it, but again, it's just the whole, because I know what Tedesco's like when he has to overplay, it definitely scares me off.
Yeah, it's a lot of money when there's so many question marks around it to spend. If it was a lot more stable, if the side was locked in and you knew what to expect, really, you'd be like, yeah, I can spend that kind of money. He was a freak last year. And you know what? I've taken his game against the Dogs, that horrible rainy game where everybody got binned. I've taken that game out of his average. And last year, he, barring that game, if you just played like every other one, he would have scored. He averaged 98.3.
Like that one game pushed it up another 4 points.
Yeah.
Damn.
Because every other score that he got was basically 100, except that one, which was just horrid. So, yeah, it was a freak of a year. But was that a freak of a year, or was the 2023 year an anomaly of a blip, of a bad run for Tedesco? And do we see him just keep rolling? Because if we do, man, I think people are going to flock to him. The Origin selection, obviously, that's not really there for him anymore. I think Edwards has kind of got that now. He definitely deserves it. It's going to be his. But I've had a look briefly forward anyway. I think the Roosters got a real nasty bye period over Origin. They missed the first 2 games, I believe, and then half their squad's obviously gone when it comes to it. So you got Angus gone.
So round 10,
what? Yeah,
round 10, round 14, round 17.
Yeah, it's not good. And then obviously you've got the Origin thing to contend with too. So it could be quite a while before we see him. It could be after after that break in general, even though he hasn't got Origin to worry about, it might not still be a viable play. So, yeah, I really hope for it. I do love Teddy. I want to have him in my side again at some point this year. But again, to start with, it's just bloody dear. Too dear for me. But anything else to add on the Chooks? Nope.
No, I'm good.
Happy days.
All righty. Next up, Newcastle Knights. Before I throw to you, Jesse, first 5, round 1, the Tigers away. Round 2, the Dolphins at home. Round 3 is the Titans at home. Round 4 bye, bit annoying when you consider the price rises and things like that. Round 4, Dogs away as well. Jesse, go to.
I don't think you got the team name right.
What did I say?
You said Newcastle Knights.
Oh, sorry, the Kalin Pongas.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here? Yeah.
You actually threw me
basically.
then. I've been thrown off with this setup at the moment, so I actually thought I made a mistake. I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah, the Kalin Pongas. Nice draw to start, barring that round 4 bye. I really don't mind that at all. We can start off in the old hooker slot. Riley Jones, 214k. Matt Arthur, 232. Phoenix Crossland with a dual halfback hooker, 341.8. And Jaden Brayley at 414.7.
Okay.
Joel?
I just wanted to go back one step. I want
Sure.
to talk a little bit more about this fixture first because I can't look at my phone, obviously. One of you might have to do this. But just looking at the first 5,
Yep.
I know there's a lot of people out there saying this about their draw, saying how nice it is and stuff. I'm actually, the more I look at it, the more I'm starting to think it's a bit of a myth because the round 4 bye in terms of Supercoach, huge pain in the ass. Round 5, the Dogs, huge defensive unit, and the Knights will be solely focusing on a lot of attack this year to get their points, I feel like. And I don't think they'll score much against the Dogs at all. The Dolphins around 2, I actually think the Dolphins will improve a lot. So I don't think there'll be a pushover at all either. So the Tigers, obviously there's a lot of talk, and that's round 1. So I reckon the Tigers will come out to make a huge case for the competition to say, look, we're not pushovers this year. So, and that's away for the Knights. So that's a home game for the Tigers. That's hard as well. And you could probably say the same about the Titans. They've got huge pressure on them this year. There's so much noise starting to become the media, especially up here in Queensland. I heard a few of the, I think it was SEN Queensland the last couple of days have been hard on the Titans and saying like they basically don't exist anymore. They need to really step up and become an identity for themselves. So even like the easy teams as such, I don't think you want to verse them early because they always come out hard and they want to make a point. So I don't think this fixture list is as easy as people are saying it is.
No, you make a really good point. Like, we expect a lot from the Tigers. Big change. Same as the Finns. They've got a lot to prove. Titans, I can't see them doing too much in general. But either way, it's an away game, so you never know. And then the bye after the price rises too could be a bit tricky. And obviously the Dogs are a defensive unit, so yeah, could be rose-colored glasses on that one. Maybe not as appealing as the ones up here.
Like the next 2 or 3?
Yeah. So the game after the Dogs, they play the Tigers.
So
Go, sorry, Trav. You can run with that.
They go the Tigers in round 6 at home. Round 7, they've got the Sharks at home. Then they've got to go to Christchurch to play the Warriors. Then they come back to Magic round against the Rabbitohs. And then round 10, they've got the Titans at home.
And then the Eels
at home.
home.
And then the Eels in round 11 if you want to go to that. And then round
easy.
12, it's the Panthers.
It's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a bad run. It's got quite a nice little roll on top to round 11 until that Panthers game. There's definitely winnable games in there for it. So the appeal is there for some of the boys. But in the hooker slot, is there any appeal at all?
I was about to say, my last point was going to be just quickly. It's unfortunate they can't verse themselves because that could have been a win.
Who do you reckon would get the spoon if they could?
Oh, I don't know. Newcastle A or B. Depends what one has Hastings and Gamble as their halves partner. Anyway, no appeal for mine in the hookers at the moment. I think it's worth noting that Phoenix Crossland, I've seen a couple of their training pictures and he looks like he's gone back to that hooker position. So that's definitely going to be a split with him and Jaden Brayley for sure. And I think that basically puts them both out. So unless one of them can get injured and one of them takes on about a 70, 80-minute hooker role, I won't be looking at any sort of hookers there.
Fair.
No, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I was going to say. I heard the same sort of things about Crossland. So, yeah, it'll be a split role. I'm not interested while it's a split role.
Yep. I'm not even interested if it's an 80-minute role, to be honest with you.
I think Brayley in an 80-minute role at 414 would be interesting. If he can get back to his somewhat best, and particularly because he's been, or as a captain, maybe something changes there, but there'd be a bit of interest. But yeah, right now, no interest.
Yep, no, that's fair. Just going to echo both of them. The front row department, Cody Hopwood at 198, Paul Bryan 198, Sebastian Sewer 232. I wonder if there's any relation. Jack Hetherington dual position 318, Matt Croker 349.8, Jacob Saifidi 467, and Leo Thompson at 494.
Easy. No.
I was going to say, it doesn't scream anything to me. Yeah. Leo Thompson, could you humour it? No. It's just a lot of money there.
We tried to humour it last year and no one got anything for it. So
yeah. Look at the ownership numbers. The most owned player in this is actually 2%. So yeah, it's going to be a very quick glaze over the front row position. There's really not a lot happening. 2 RFs. Sort of opens up a bit. Tyrone Thompson at 198, Jermaine McEwen at 198, Francis Manulelu 214, Thomas Cant 274, Hetherington again spoken, Brody Jones at 324, Matt Croker dual position 349, Kai Pearce-Paul at 529, Tyson Frizzell 528, Adam Elliott 561, and the big man Dylan Lucas 616. Now we've got Dylan Lucas up on the screen here. Dual position, 2RF, center wing. God, he's a freaking monster.
Mm-hmm.
He's a demon. Sold him a car once. Claim that. I love him. He's a good bloke. Good footy player. I love the duel. I just want him to get a bloody position. I want him to lock that stuff in because I really like it, especially early days. Trav, what are your thoughts, man? Joel's lost it.
Oh, there's what sort of car did he buy first of all?
He bought an MG.
Which one?
I won't disclose too much information.
Oh, come on!
How much did he pay for it?
You're not giving us his number plate.
No, it was top of the line model. Actually, it was in the small SUV range, but top of the line.
Electric?
And not credit card.
Nah, not electric.
Turbo.
I
have interest in him at center wing. I'm not interested in him at 2RF. 63 average is a good point. 616K is a lot of money, but there's so much chatter around how much better he's going to get. I've seen so many good statistics about him that he's certainly on my radar. I haven't picked him at the moment. He's on 9% of teams. He's got so much potential. The problem is that he plays for the Knights, and I'm just not interested on really anyone bar 2 players on this Knights team. And unfortunately for him, I'm just not interested until I can watch them play. I'm laughing at the Tyrone Thompson pick for 5%. So just so that everyone knows, Leo Thompson's leaving, so that Newcastle Knights play of getting his brother in is not going to work. So he's more than likely not going to play. So yeah, those 5%, have a think about that. And surely he's not enough because he's got no dual position and he's only 2RF.
They've picked the wrong one.
Yeah. There's only a slight difference in price too. Adam Elliott, I'm not interested in. Other than that, no, I'm not interested in anyone. Dylan Lucas, but I'd put him at the center.
Yep. Joel? You done laughing?
I'm not interested in any single person on that list either. So even Dylan Lucas, I'm guessing he's going to start on an edge for him. If that's the position, he won't be on the back line. Obviously, if full strength back line to start the year, he's not in there. So, and he's always the first one they move as well. Whenever there is an issue in the back line, they move him straight away. I'll be watching. 616K doesn't interest me to go for him. If he was around the 500 mark, I'd probably reconsider that. I just think for now, start the year, I'll just watch him. I didn't I didn't think I had him at all last year either, actually. So I missed out on all that. So I'll miss out again.
Yeah, just on some of those numbers, he's the first guy to get punted around too, and he pretty much goes everywhere. It doesn't bother him at all. His output actually increases when he goes to the center, which is madness. So starting edge spots last year, he averaged 66 with a 55 in base. Starting center spots, he averaged 67.2 with a 47.2 in base. So a bit more attack. Mate, he's averaging 66, 67, going off that, slightly underpriced. It just depends where he goes. Like, does he start? Does he come off the bench? Because obviously the center spots are pretty much taken with Best fully fit again and Gagai. There's so much there for him. I think he's got a massive future. Again, it's the Knights though. So
just to clarify,
yeah,
like I would play him as a center wing in Supercoach. He's not a center on the Knights team. So just want to clarify that. The other thing too that we've all got to remember is that not only does he play for the Knights, he also plays for Adam O'Brien.
I was about to say that.
So there's a whole nother playing field there as well, and what's going on there. And he's certainly someone to watch, but I'm not picking him until some things change or I see something drastic change in that list and that team.
Knowing Adam O'Brien, they'll come out at the start of the year. Frizzell and Jack Hetherington will be the edge back rowers.
I thought you were going to say they're training in the halves.
All that. Who knows? So I can't do it. Can't trust Adam O'Brien.
No, that's fair. No one else in the 2RF screaming to you. No, everyone's at their price, aren't they? There's no real upside in any of the guys. They're kind of priced accordingly. The halfback dilemma, the halves gamble. We got Phoenix Crosland as a duel. We've spoken on him. Jack Cogger, Jackson Hastings, gamble, price. We've spoken about this a zillion times. They're not an option. Price point, Jack Cogger, 401k. Jackson Hastings, 554. Cogger's a duel as well, which is kind of handy. So if he does get a starting spot, he actually could be quite a nice little option as a dual 5'8". Was he always a 5'8"?
He's never really been a 5'8". He just sort of slid into those and Nathan Cleary in the Panthers team that he wasn't getting the jersey.
I'm just trying to think about the Supercoach app. Has that been updated to give him a 5'8" spot? Or has he always had that? Or am I just blinded? I didn't notice. Because I actually don't mind that pickup, to be fair. I must have never seen it. Because you would have to think that he's going to get a spot. Surely it's coming. Trav, you got any
Adam O'Brien. We keep saying O'Brien. Adam O'Brien. So
you can't really rely on anything, can you?
I think everyone knows by now. We've said it enough on the podcast and at posts and stuff. We believe, well, I'm talking for majority of us here at League of Inches, I believe, that we think it should be a Cogger halfback, will price 5'8" to start the year. That's where we would go for as a majority here on the page and for us three here. So, but I'm more than confident. That's not what Adam O'Brien is.
No.
So there's also a dude that's not even got that label. Who they're talking about putting in. So
exactly.
and this is the shambles that we've got, right? Is that you just don't know. So at this point in time, steer clear of every single one of them until you get to TLT. And even then, TLT is not going to tell you anything. I'd steer clear until round 5. Like you just because you don't bloody know. Like they're going to have the first 3 rounds. Maybe he trials a few things. The bye, he goes and practice. He doesn't like it. Takes a couple of weeks, practices it, and round 5 comes on. You just don't know with Adam O'Brien, and you don't know what's going to happen with that team. And and as you said, there's 5 or 6 that can be just floating around, and we've still got Sharp, and he's not even labelled as that. He's labelled as a setter. So, to end this conversation, because I think we've wasted too much breath on it. Just steer clear until halfway through the year, and you know what's going on.
Yep. Avoid at all costs.
Save headaches.
5'8", just to mention them, obviously, Will Price is in there, 310. Tyson Gamble, 418. Cogger, we just spoke. Price is 7%. Looking for that cheap 5'8" option. Just go cheaper. Just nuff it if you're going to go 310. It's probably not going to get a start, realistically. So there's no one cheaper than him. That looks like any one option anyway. To the centers. DeCourcy, 198. Taj Annan at 214. Greg Marzu, geez, it jumps, doesn't it? Straight to 500k. 513. James Schiller, Raiders recruit, 515. Bradman Best, 564. Dylan Lucas, 616. Fletcher Sharp, dual position fullback centre wing at 636 and Dan Gagai at 694. Yeah, well, we were just talking about Fletcher Sharp. Obviously, all reports are he's training in the 5'8". He can't get 5'8" dual, even if he does actually start there, and it looks like he's going to be a 5'8", but I still think his appeal would be in the centre wing regardless. But the man on the screen that we've got, obviously not Ponga in the text, Marzu being forgotten about. He's 11% owned at the moment, so he's definitely not forgotten about, but heavily, underpriced, undervalued potentially on what he'd done in 2023. Trav, what are your thoughts on Marzu? I know you've had him in a few sides.
I have. I'm very keen. I think there's a lot of upside there. There's a lot of improvement with him, even though he does who he plays for and what he's got, and who his coach is, and all the things that are happening in the nightmares in the halves partner and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, Marzu still plays with one Kalin Ponga, and therefore that makes him so much more viable. At 513, I think there was a point in time in 2023 that he was well over 700K. Like, he was huge, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely.
This is a dude that has just monstrous potential. For a year that was a down year, he still put up 52.5, which is not bad. He's priced at that. I think he could easily push that to well in the 60s easily. And so, yeah, he's certainly on the radar. I don't have him in at the moment because I've been able to play with my team around. I've gone 2 superstars guns that I want, and then I've gone 2 middies. He's just quite a little bit above the midi price that I want. So it's either I drop a Garrick or Carraz down to play, and that could actually happen because we just don't know what's going to happen with all these cheapy options and all our bench options. So that's a potential thing that I've got at the back of my mind. I've got it written down, potentially drop one down for him. And go from that. But my other one that we all continue to keep sleeping on, and I mentioned it before with Tupou, but Mr. Gagai, 71
Always.
average, has 0% ownership. It's just we sleep on this man. Like, everyone sits there, and it was like a couple of years ago, I heard people talking father time, right? It's time for him to retire, and have a look what he's done the last couple of years. He's just a freak. Is he not just a freak in that team to do what he's doing over and over again? It's just insane.
Yep. He just doesn't stop. What about you, Joel? What do you reckon? Marzu. Keen?
I'm waiting on Marju. I don't know. We're going to wait to see if this Marju comes back. One thing I wanted to, I'm starting to understand a bit more about this Fletcher Sharp stuff, because obviously he's naturally a fullback. The closest thing, if you can't play fullback because of Ponga, is 5'8". So I understand that to a certain degree, and they've spoken at length that they don't really have the options. I personally would love to see Will Price get the gig, but I'm starting to understand more why they're going that way to Fletcher Sharp. The other thing I want to mention, James Schiller, he was an absolute gun last year for the Raiders when given a chance at the start of the year. So I think that's potentially a reason why they're doing this change, because James Schiller is pushing his way into this team and getting a wing spot. So him and Marju, the wingers, I'm guessing, and Best and Gagai will be the centers. It's not a bad backline on paper at all. So just the forward pack. The forward pack for mine's a huge one for them, and making sure that the backline can score the points, and then obviously the halves. So that's the other thing. Fletcher Sharp, he needs a halfback to really controlling halfback. They lack that at the moment, in my opinion. So that's going to hurt his game. I don't think Fletcher Sharp will upsize too much points-wise if he does get the 5'8" spot, just because of that lack of halfback might hurt him. A bit of pressure. And again, the Knights in that spine, it all goes to Ponga. When Ponga wants the ball, Ponga gets the ball. So you basically play second fiddle or third fiddle to Kalin Ponga every single attacking raid. So, yeah, apart from, because Chile, if I remember correctly, because again, I can't look at my phone. I feel naked doing this at the moment. He scored really well at the start of the year, didn't he?
Yeah, it was huge, man.
Yep.
He came in, had just a few back-to-back weeks of massive scores, made like 200. I think he almost hit 500K at one point within 2 or 3 weeks. And then Ricky dropped him because I think he signed for the Knights. So he's just like, oh, see you later. On you go. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
just
he
have a
went
quick.
77, 112, 69, all in 80 minutes. Actually, the 69 he did in 90 minutes. And then he got against the Broncos and Sharks, 35, 36, and then didn't play again.
Yep. So he just went from
Fine.
238.9 to 468. It was actually 473 if you got off a bit earlier. But yeah, he was just this instant cash bump. So and that's what we were saying too with the cash. Is like they just come up. They just sort of come out of nowhere. You jump on, make sure you get the right one. You've got a couple of weeks to watch them if they do come out of nowhere, and you get a shiller, very quick, easy cash. But yeah, I kind of like what you're thinking there, Joel. That would be really nice, and I think Schiller, might even be an option. But again, obviously, we just have to see what happens with him. But yeah, to Marzu's price, he did peak in 2023 at 759, and then started 24 at 789. Now we're looking at him at 513, asking questions. It's like, God, what do you mean? This guy's a freak. But yeah, you just got to get that base up. And I think a lot of it comes down to Best as well. Obviously, Best played 17 games, so it was still there for quite a good chunk of it. But it just tapered down. We expected so much from the left edge. It was always just left edge for Ponga, and then everything seemed the other way. Mike just went tumbling. Yeah, but Tagagai, he's a freak. He's a 70-point average player, and he doesn't seem to ever get owned by anyone. So yeah, hyperpod, if anything.
And it's really
owned.
hard to always get because he always floats at that price because he never does. He never plays a bad game, right? So he never drops. But then when he has monster games, which happens every now and then, it keeps him sort of price. So he's really, you just can never get him. So it's just funny with his ownership.
His lowest price last year was in round 13, 619 and a half. Like, that's still so expensive. Okay, guys.
Like, he just never drops. It just doesn't happen.
It was just a gradual drop, and he ended up going up. He's finished the season at 660, but he went back up to 675 and 686 at one point. So he's always there or thereabouts. It's just so dear. It's just, and I'd love to have him 1 year. Just because exactly.
You're running out of time.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty much the last year to do it. It's like having Yo in your centers. You just get a 70 every week. Don't worry about it.
No Origin either.
No, well, not anymore. Hey, I suppose that's pretty much it for the centers. Moving on to
Go to him.
Go to him, eh? The man in the screen, the big boy, Kalin Ponga, 790k. There's also Connor Vitano as well, 198. But the man is Kalin Ponga.
Sorry,
They're the guy we're talking about.
Sorry, Connor.
Sorry, Fletcher Sharp would be there too. So yeah, Ponga, 790. He's 100k cheaper than he was last year. Trav, no brainer. What do you reckon?
It's not a no-brainer because I'm finding other ways to find others, and I can't have all of them. But I'll say this very easily. I don't think anyone can really do anything wrong in their fullback with a combination of Drinkwater, Ponga, Turbo, Latrell. And if you can, you're not going to do anything wrong with any sort of combination of that. And then if you even want to go down a bit of a pod play and go a bit lower, I don't think you're going wrong with your Keenies into your Pappenhausens, then Hammer at 650. Pappy's even cheaper than that. Like I just don't think you can do anything wrong there. So whilst Ponga's a great choice. Very happy to have Ponga, especially with that first three, Tigers, Dolphins, Titans. And I think Ponga can really chew that up as much as we did talk about that draw not being as easy as maybe we say it is. For Ponga, he's matchup proof. So I think he's easily able to be, he'll chew each one of those three up. I'm at the moment, I'm with Drinky and I'm with Turbo. So I haven't got Ponga now. But there ain't nothing wrong with having him.
Who have you got, Joel, currently? Is he in your side?
I've got Drinky, Turbo, and Ponga in my team. So
yeah, I love that trio. Yeah, I
I've
rock the same at the moment.
I love him. I love the thought of having Ponga. There's just now a smallest concern now having Fletcher Sharp at 5'8", just because Fletcher Sharp's a quality player. He's actually a live wire who'll be thereabouts on the ball. he'll be picking up some of those balls from forwards and stuff and being there and being that sort of player that scoots through if there's a break, where normally that's like we see the fullback do that so many times where they just draw them past the fullback and under the sticks they go. There's a real possibility that's because Fletcher Sharp's close to the play. He can be doing that as well. He's quick. He's a live wire. So there's a small little voice in the back of my mind saying if Fletcher Sharp's 5'8", maybe that's a little bit of points off Ponga. I don't think it's much to stress too much about, but it's just a little thing where I'm going, oh, there is a couple of other options out there that I might go for, but at his price point, it's a Kalin Ponga. I did mention that draw isn't as good as you think it could be. At the same time, it's Kalin Ponga. So you just know what he's capable of. You know he'll be able to tear most defenses apart. But then again, we go back to the Adam O'Brien point. We go back to the halves dilemma. We go, it's all over the shop, but at the end of the day, it's Kalin Ponga. He's in my team.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I'm sort of sitting on Turbo as my main guy at the moment, and then I'm looking at that other spot, and I'm like, do I just have the two fullbacks? Is it Drinky or Ponga? Or if I go three fullbacks, which I'm sort of very heavily leaning towards these days now, it's Ponga and Drinky with Turbo, and it's just a lock-in of the three of them. But just on Ponga, just some of his numbers, man. They start off with the Tigers. His last game against the Tigers was in round 23 last year. He scored 124. Time before that, he played him in 23. It was 137. Round 2, he's got the Finns. Last time he scored, it was the last round 27 against them. He scored 106. The time before that against the Dolphins, 121.
Oh.
Then he's got the Titans. Last year, 118. The year before, 114. Like, we're talking, this guy's probably going to come out of the gates absolutely screaming. And then you look at his average. He averaged 80.7, but that's with that game where he was injured as well. So you got to take that shocker of a game where I'm pretty sure I captained him for a 14.
So
take that.
So the question is then you've got all these wonderful stats and there's all these wonderful points, right? And pretty much the majority are going to fullbacks. So who do you not play? Because we spoke how much we want to have Drinkwater in the Cowboys time, and last week we spoke about how much Turbo's a must-have. So who doesn't come in? And you have to find. So then for you to have three fullbacks, you've got to find another $790K to put him into your flex spot.
Yep.
So then you've got to try and you're playing around with everyone. Like it's. That's where I look at these three guns in the fullback and I just go, well, I'll just take a little bit of money out of my hooker and I'll take a little bit of money out of my second 5'8", because these positions suck most of the time, and you make it happen. And we've got the luxury of making it happen this year. And I think the more I think about it, the more I think it's rude not to, in a way, because they're just so good. And it's like, I'm really struggling. If I had to choose two out of those three, I'm struggling. Genuinely, because I really like Drinkwater. I still think Ponga. Which leads to my point of I don't think you can do anything wrong by having any sort of combination between the 4 or 5 of those stud fullbacks. We've established that Dylan Edwards is too expensive. We've established that Teddy's too expensive. So anyone from there onwards, Latrell's is suspended for week 1, so that could be why you don't go Latrell. And you don't go further down with Keeney because he's also got the bye week 1. So you're now left with Turbo, Drinkwater, and Ponga in that 3. And I think if you can have all 3, awesome, as long as it doesn't destroy the rest of your team. If you're going to go 2, I don't think you're going to go wrong with any 2 of those 3.
Yeah, I feel like as well, one point to that, and one way I feel like you can make this 3 fullback situation work, and it's what I'm playing with now. And I've got an idea in my head, and I know we were huge on Blake Brayley, and I love the fact that you just pick him and that's it. You don't have to worry about trades. But the Roosters we just spoke about, they don't have their first buy until, what was it, round 10 you mentioned? So I feel like with Sandon Smith, with that hooker position, there's a realistic chance that him and Brayley can almost score identical points throughout that first 10-week period. And by then, you've got a really cheap hooker there who I don't want to play 2 hookers at all for the first 10 weeks. I don't want to play 2 hookers probably for the whole year. So I'm starting to think nuff out 1 hooker spot and just chuck a 198 guy on there and have Sandon Smith as my hooker. He's potentially should be goal kicking, 80-minute halfback or 5'8" should have majority of the reins for the team. There's all of a sudden 350, 400 odd K freed up from going down to Blake Brayley. That's a huge bit of coin that I can now play within my team to make it even stronger while having 3 fullbacks. And if you don't have the 3 fullbacks yet, that helps you get to that third really strong fullback. Mate, I don't know the game, but I know it.
So you got, and there's options. So Blake Brayley's 518. You can go down to Moser at 312. You can go to Mamazelis at 302.
Go to Sandon. Just go it.
Everyone's already got Sandon Smith. So you've got to try and find that second spot, right? So it's
how many have him at hooker 1 though? Because I see him. I can straight up see him being your hooker. Straight start hooker at 237 or whatever his price is. Peanuts. Start him because Jesus, like he could definitely do worse.
Chan Kumtong is 232. Where it is that he's going to he's starting at hooker because of Croker's injury. So
there's definitely options. You could easily do it, and I think if you were starting Sandon Smith as your starting hooker, I actually don't think it would be a very bad play. Genuinely, and you're banking 300k minimum if you're looking at those 500 guys. So, yeah, it's easy money. You can definitely get all 3 of them. But yeah, just like I was saying before, you take that injury game out for Ponga. Going back to him, he averages basically 86. He's pretty much averaging what Dylan Edwards is getting, and he's 50k underpriced off 1 game. And that's why I'm like, God, it's really hard to avoid him because I paid 100k dearer for him last year. First player in my side, no questions asked, and both me and Newdrol were so high on Ponga. I'm still as high on him as I was last year too, to start with. So, yeah. God, we can get all 3 now.
And the round 4 bye, it probably makes it a bit easier to deal with if we're going to have both Turbo and Drinky in our teams as well. So it's going to hurt a little bit, I guess, points-wise that week with the flex not having that extra strong fullback, but you'll make it work. It'll be okay. I think at the end of the day, Ponga is almost a must-have as well.
Just trade him down to a Yongi.
Yeah, by
round 4. Bank 600k.
You got the Sharkies. Yeah, why not?
God, that would be. I reckon there'll be people that do it too. But yeah, I don't know. I can't sing his praises anymore. 33% owned. He's quite high up there in the fullback ranks. He's what is he in the overall for the fullbacks? He's the 3rd highest owned fullback outside of Ayongi and Tom Turbo. So I can see that being a very popular combination between Turbo, Ponga, and then Ayongi in the flex. I can see that being very heavily owned in those 3. And it drops off quite a lot after that. You know, Latrell in 30%, and then the next one's 10. And that's Reece Walsh. And even still, there's so many better, more appealing guys below that. But that's basically the side, I would say. We've sort of gone through the Knights as well. And there we are.
I've got the questions, so I know that you'll.
Oh, you legend! I was just about to apologise to take the light off and go and find these questions, but thank you,
I've already
Trav.
got them, so I'll read them out. Hey, so Instagram.
I had a feeling you were up for something when you were very quiet. I had a feeling you were sneakily getting something done.
Oh, yeah, just let you guys, the smart ones, talk, eh? So Instagram has no questions, so I've just gone back to Facebook. So the first question I've got here is from EJ, and it says, last year there were no 2RF in the top 10 averages, only 4 in the top 25 averages, and in 2023, only 1 in the top 10 and 2 in the top 25. Is 2RF starting to become a position where we can look more at the mids and cheapies opposed to back a few years where we try and get as many guns in that spot and even 2RFs in the centers?
I understand. I can see it, but I feel like it's kind of where the difference gets made, isn't it? Like, you know, a lot of people will go for those big dog center wings, the big fullbacks, the big halves, Clearys, you know, Garrick, Carraz like last year. Turbo, Latrell, Ponga, those kind of things. It's when your side's like that and you're expecting these big points, getting someone that has the upside of those guys in your second row when you're dealing with 3 plotters scoring you 40 points each week, that's a lot of points to make up. You know, like we had last year, look at Katoa, Nikora, and Crichton. That was my last 3. starting second rowers. And on a good week, I could get 350 points out of the three of them. Where if you don't have good second rowers, if you're dealing with the mid 300-400 guys and you're just getting along with it, you'd be lucky to get 120 out of the three of them on a good week, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, the divide is massive between a good one and just a mid-ranger. And like the elite guys are elite for a reason. You can bank on them. Sometimes like a you might not bank on 100 like you can get out of a gun fullback for a similar price, but you can bank on a 70. And sometimes you can't with those other positions too. So I'm leaning more this year into spending up in second row more than I have probably ever, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sort of on that as well, because I think you're either going for the balance of the team at the moment, realistically, 2 guns you can probably fit in there. And then because of like someone like Fine Fuiaki, you can literally have realistically a 360 odd KR who should be playing 80 minutes pretty much weekly. And he's proven over time now when he gets to play those longer minutes, he scores almost, I wouldn't say elite, but he scores quite up there, and he can consistently find the line and things like that. So we've got a bit of a luxury this year where you can actually feel like you can afford 1 or 2 of those guns and have a really strong 2RF, which last year when we were going on about having all those 450 players and stuff, it just made you feel a bit weird and a bit sick inside, because you're like, oh, we all knew going into that some would work, some will get stuck with. Or at least I feel like this year's a little bit different because we're going to have 1 or 2 guns, and it's going to help us navigate that awkward period if it does fall on us.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. There is, like, I've got Olukuatu, so I've gone there, and then I've just changed it from IPAP to Watson, and then I've got Finafuiaki sitting in my 3rd spot. There are, to the point of the question, is that you don't necessarily need to have, in my opinion, do you need to have these guns? There is some good options that's going to plot up a 50 and 60 for you that's priced around the 50 mark, around the 500 and 400K this year. Like we spoke about, Josh Curran came up again today, and we weren't even talking about the Bulldogs, but again, I think he's popped up and been mentioned in every one of our pods for Supercoach. You've got IPAP, you've got Watson at the higher end of 500. Then there are risk or pod plays in terms of he's got his internet back. Oh, he's got his power back.
Not the power back.
You've got other options like your Bloors, you've got Tino, there's Bateman. A lot of
Murray.
people are talking about Fainu. Murray will come back. I know Joel was high on Hosking. Liero's going to get a big improvement, and that's just before we get to the before we finish in the 500K mark, right? Then in the lower 400s, there's still a couple of little options there in terms of your Gilberts and things. So this is one of those funny years, and it's a really good question because there are some pretty quality options that are pod plays in that 500 and 400K range that stops us from spending up 600 and 700K. Now, are they going to do what those guys in the 600-700K are? Probably not. More than likely not. But I think they're still going to give you some really good option and really good scores to be able to get a Ponga as your 3rd fullback or that sort of thing. So there's, I think to answer the question there, I think you can still play with a low 600, a 500 and a 400 easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And just with that as well, like we kind of spoke about it with Angus Crichton's price, at 760. Sorry. That's big money. If you're looking at 760, it's almost Drinkwater. You know what I mean? And it's a fullback with kicking upside. It's almost Ponga. So he's that when you start weighing up the price point of, a Crichton to a Ponga, considering they're only 30K apart. Geez, so that's when you start thinking, God, I don't know if second row really has that kind of value to it. And again, like the 500K second rowers aren't really going to do what the 750K ones are going to do consistently, but they might do it once or twice every month or two, and that could be enough. Could be enough for you.
Which is why someone like a Connor Watson, like a Josh Curran, are really good value because They are in that mid 500 to the higher 500, but are not really ever going to bomb out, right? So they're always going to get that 50, and that's okay if that allows you to be able to put money into that extra halfback, that superstar center winger, or that third fullback. I think that this is a good year to do that, and we're at that point where we can do that. And go from there. So good question, EJ. The next question is from Adam, and it says, with Toho gone, is Barnett worth paying up for 661K?
I just quickly 1 second before we answer that one. Shout out to TC Coolers as well. Thank you for this part of the podcast where you do give away the 2 coolers, obviously with your questions that you bring in to us on a weekly basis. So I really do appreciate that. And apologies, the blackout, I had to come in and out with the Wi-Fi finally kicking in, so mucked me around. I am huge on Barnett all of a sudden. The last week or so since this Tohu news, I actually think more and more that he'll get the 13th spot. The bloke's everything. He can play back row, front row. He's got the skills. He's got the motor. Give him the 13 jersey and away we go with it. And he'll be moonwalking into my team.
Barnett's so good that he doesn't even have to play and he can still get kicked 10 minutes in the bin. That's how bloody good he is, right? I'm so high on him too. Hey, I'm not 100% sure at the moment just how much I am eager on him, just because I know that there's a few things to play out there with that Warriors team. So I'm just going to wait and see. He's definitely someone to be keeping your eye on for. And yes, if he does get that 13 or there's those extra minutes and it goes to Barnett, or the extra play and it goes to Barnett at 661, that's underpriced for what I think he can do.
Yeah. I think he averaged high 70s in games without Tohu last year. So, yeah, and that's just without him. That's just increase in minutes too. So, yeah, if he does get that spot, which I suspect he will, at 660 as a dual, my goodness. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's monstrous.
Let's be realistic about this because the Warriors need JFH and Barnett on the field as long as possible this year, because outside of that, I think their forward package is going to struggle a little bit this year.
And he could kick, which is exciting. Yes. That's so exciting. If I find that he's kicking, I don't think I can have him in my side fast enough, to be fair. Yeah. Genuinely.
First round pick.
I can see Jesse just sprinting up the highway, running. Where's my phone so I can I got to get him in. Good question. The next one is from Shane. Now, I was going to give TC Coolers a shout out, Joel, but I was going to do it at the end. Mate. But seeing as you've done that now, I'll give them another plug, TC Coolers, because this one is a subscriber. So Shane, so remind me, right? He gets two
entries into the weekly draw for these bad boys. Draw.
So Shane says, new to Supercoach, and is it better to try stack some players that you're happy to have as set and forgets from the start, or is it all about making money from the get-go? Cheers, guys.
Why not both? Well, you can actually get both done realistically. You can have your stack your fullbacks and stuff like we've spoken about, and have your players like Finef Uyaki, who should realistically make you a bucket load of cash. So I think this year, there's this year, when you actually look into it a bit more, there's realistic ways to achieve both.
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act. You want your guns. You want a couple of them that you're going to run with for the long haul. But primarily this time of the year, the reason why we are looking at cashies and mid-ranges and all that is strictly for cash generation. The starting price of 11.8, God, if you're not at 14.5, 15 mil by around 15, 13-ish, you're kind of doing it a bit wrong. It's sort of the name of the game. Like, you need to make that coin. That's kind of what you got to do. You got to have your guns. You got to get these guys in that you want to have. You can't have your final team in round one, obviously, because you can't afford it. And so how are you going to afford it? You got to find the cheapies. And which ones you set and forget to stick with? It's the guys that are going to damage you the most not owning. That's the way I can sort of look at who are the guys you want to start with. It's the guys that you don't want to get punished by, basically. Not a lot of upside in a turbo price-wise, but you don't want to not have him when he's banging 150 points out, because you still have to make points. You want to make your money. You want to get these guns, but you win Supercoach by outscoring everyone, not by having the biggest team value there is. So your Clearys, your Turbos, your big heavy hitters, like I think you just got to lock them in. You just can't really think two ways around it. But again, you can't do that with every position. You need to look to the cheapies. It's just got to find the right balance.
Yeah,
Don't be
exactly what I was
off.
going to say, Jesse. I agree. You have to have the balance because you literally from round one cannot have your full team. So you've got to be able to find, but you want to start with some of these guys early and then make your way into the cash and then trade them up, trade down, trade up, do all those sorts of things you've got to do to play the market to get to your final team as quickly as you can. And the only way you can do it by getting there as quick as you can is by having the cash to trade out. Yeah, ideally, you're looking at trying to get by the end of Origin is where you've got your final team, right? And then you're hoping that by the end of Origin, all you ended up doing is using a boost and maybe maybe one boost if you've got one left, and a few of your trades just to plug gaps where you need to because an injury pops up or a suspension gets annoying because that happens. So yeah, you definitely got to have a balance of it. That's all the questions, Joel, on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And that's pretty much the episode. One thing we will probably start doing on a Supercoach episode moving forward. We did do this last year and we'll get back into it. I know it's been a big talking point as of late. Those little team sort of reviews that we do might feature one of those on an episode moving forward. So what we'll do with that, we will prioritize our legends, obviously, that Facebook subscriber group. Again, that quick plug, $2.99 a month, great value, awesome value. I can't keep saying it enough. Those members will have priorities, so we'll select one of those teams if they would like that moving forward from next week. So if you want to get your team looked up by the two professionals here that we have, then more than happy, go ahead, get in that group, prioritize yourself. Same with the comps and things like that. Whoever's in that will always have priority for us moving forward. So it's as cheap as chips. So please be a member there and you will absolutely love it. I've got no doubt about it. That's it. Keen as apologies again about what happened. The blackout mixed up a few things. I'll try and edit things as much as we can so we don't feel it too much. But yeah, hopefully the boys got through that and didn't miss me too much for that couple of minutes and got there in the end. We're back and thank you very much. It was a harder episode because of that, but we got through it in the end. Jesse, the hostess with the mostest. Finally, do we leave him with the team? You've basically, unless they're not watching on YouTube, they've probably worked it out by now, but do you let them know your team name this year, what you've settled on?
I think I have settled on it. I don't settle on a team name until it's like the final hour, but I'm super keen on my team name being What's a Farnworth? Just gets me every time. Just bloody, and Joel friggin' loves it. Trav, not so much. He's straight face, just sitting there. It's almost like he's frozen. Can't work him out, but I love it. No, What's a Farnworth? Such a good
question. Is that the name you're going to have for all your draft leagues and your Supercoach? You're going to have that for everything?
Potentially. I might have different draft teams, so I think that's my classic team name.
I was going to say, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Trav, do you want to let everyone know what your team will be this year? That way, if they see you in a comp, they know it's Trav from League of Inches.
Oh, my team's just simply Travis Boys. That's it. Done and dusted. That's what I'm going to have.
Inch at a Time is back for its second year. I didn't quite win many comps. I think I won one in the end, but had quite a good year consistency-wise. Finished my best overall. So Inch at a Time, the legacy's carrying on. We want to try and attempt to crack the 1,000 mark this year. I think that can be a realistic goal for us. So Inch at a Time, bring it on. Jesse, we're coming for you. But thank you guys. Right. I hope you all enjoyed.
If we get to 1,000, in the league, we'll put on a prize, a big prize.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you grab those overall league code and get into it.
Huge.
I can by next week we'll be in. I reckon about 300 or so will be in it easily. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoy the episode. Like it, subscribe it, share it out. Follow us on all the social media platforms, all that as well. Give us some feedback as well. Please do that on like Facebook and YouTube, all that sort of stuff. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.